Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the NYACAST. Yes, I accidentally made a podcast. It's called the NYACAST. It's LGBTQ stuff. If you're new here, if this is like your first time, I have like an entire playlist of videos actually on my VOD channel. If you're on Twitch chat, you can also use !NYACAST to get the entire list. But yeah, today we're joined by Ravi, also known as Ravine Lux. Do you wanna introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. I am Ravine Lux. I am a history content creator. I have the degree of notoriety that I have mostly because I made a history video series on Quebec, and it's called Quebec: A Discourse on Nations. But I've also made video essays about Ukraine and Palestine, talking specifically about history and the history of political ideas. So there's people who do history on YouTube that are more focused on events or on wars, but I'm not really interested on wars as much. I am more of like what's called an intellectual historian, which sounds incredibly pretentious, but it's just like the history of ideas, of like how people come to certain conclusions on certain things. And I'm also a VTuber, and I also stream on my main channel video games that are like story based. And yeah.
You have recently turned into a VTuber, right?
I got this model this year. I mean, it's been in production for like 2 years.
Yeah.
But like, yeah.
Fresh out of the VTube factory.
Yes. It's one of the newer ones, for sure. I'm also French and Mexican.
I'm so sorry for
like four languages.
For you being French.
No, it's okay. We invented human rights, so we love you, even if you hate us. Okay.
I think it's funny, like as a German person, like most of my friends are actually like French or British or from the US.
Yeah, we know you're not racist, don't worry.
I don't really have like a lot of friends that are also German, but like I know that from my French friends that most of their friends are German and not necessarily French. I think it's kind of funny how that works.
Yeah. Interesting. How have you met all these French people then? Because you don't live in France, like.
Mainly through VTubing, actually. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Like most of my VTuber friends are like a lot of my VTuber friends are French.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm
for
not
a
really,
season
like,
I had the same thing.
I'm not really connected with like German VTubing, to be fair.
I mean, would you like to be? Is that something that you would like spend energy into?
I mean, not necessarily.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, in the end of the day, by the end of the day, the English community is like one of the bigger ones. I was before looking at your stream, I was looking at like Emile Crapuil, who is like probably the biggest French streamer that there is in like French language exclusively. She's like the French Gura, basically. And you had more viewers than her. Like,
oh, damn.
When I was watching. Yeah, so I think within these like European circles, VTubing is still like very much a niche.
Yeah.
And the biggest VTubers that I know that are like, from Europe do bother to like make not European content, right?
Yeah. I mean,
if you were the Slovenian VTuber, like how many viewers could you get?
I mean, most of the German VTubers that I know also do content only in English.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yes.
Yeah, like I do know some, but it's just like I'm not necessarily like connected with this space. I feel like I don't know like how you feel about like the French space.
I love the French space.
Okay.
Because it's like super woke and it doesn't have as many dramas, and people are very punitive of like lolicon and things like that. So I mean, I am very content about like the kind of culture that exists there. I guess what you have to consider is that, for example, in France, people kicked out someone like Riri. Riri
Yeah,
used to be a French language streamer,
yeah. And then she got
and
picked up by the
by the right-wing
US.
English
Yeah,
sphere. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
So like the French sphere has like healthier politics. I guess it's just like much smaller in terms of the niche.
Like when you get
So
kicked
yeah.
out, you actually get kicked out. I saw,
Yeah.
like on my timeline, I saw
Mhm.
German speaking VTubing drama where somebody was like being transphobic and people were like, oh yeah, this is, messed up. And then like English speaking people were
Imagine,
like,
imagine. Yeah.
yeah, English, like EN VTubing just like came in being like, yeah, but like that is just like somebody being cancelled for their normal opinion and so on. And I was just like, it must be such a culture shock if you're
Mm.
a German or like French creator and then a drama like this situation, this bigotry that you're trying to like expose gets like boosted by EN VTubing and like celebrated.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like, I mean, coming from like the background that I come from, which is not even like related to VTubing necessarily, because I used to be a creator in a different niche. Uh, it's surprising how captured the English VTubing sphere is by like this like right-wing tinge. I am honestly kind of taken aback. Like the
Yeah,
first time I tried to like participate in it, I was surprised by how hostile people are to what outside of this place are like very normal opinions. Like if you're transphobic, like you normally get kicked out. If you're like homophobic, like you normally get kicked out.
yeah,
It's strange because like if you go around VTubers, for example, like the VTubers and the VTubers I know, who are mutual friends, it's super common that these guys have like disabilities, for example, or that they are LGBT, for example. And you'd be surprised like how many of us are like not the kind of people who will benefit from like right-wing governments. Nevertheless,
yeah.
there they are. So yeah, I don't know what's going on really, but like it will be interesting to study once a little bit of time passes, I guess.
Yeah, I think that like the problem with VTubing or like with anime in general is like it is being hijacked by a lot of right-wing people.
Mm,
And
yeah,
with Twitter turning into something that's worse than 4chan and people monetizing this hatred and drama and so on, it kind of gives the breeding grounds for like all these grifters. And it's so
mm,
fascinating to me that like women are going to like sit there and be like, oh yeah, actually feminism is like a really bad thing. And then they get like
yeah,
celebrated for it. And it's like, okay, you're attracting a group of people who don't want you to actually make money. They just want you to
yeah,
be, stuck as like an incubator and like a
yeah, pretty
personal
much.
slave to like some guy. That is what they want.
Mm.
And it's so
Do you
fascinating
want
to
to?
me that they are going to like sit there and like cater towards these people.
Yeah. Do you want to hear my conspiracy theory?
Sure.
I think that anime is like a holding space for introverts, but they are not introverts that are necessarily selected by good things, I guess. So, there are kids who
Hmm.
get bullied in school because they are like LGBT if they're like in a bad environment, or maybe they're nerdy or they have autism or like they have one of many things that make them non-conforming. And whenever they're in school, that makes them want to find community elsewhere, and those they go like online to like find friends. But there's also kids who, let's say, get bullied for good reasons because maybe they're like
Yeah.
antisocial or they are like not really good at like getting along with others, and their parents never really like enforce boundaries on them and things like that. So, but they're also introverts and they also have like a need for community. And then what happens is that these two groups of people get pushed into the same holding spaces online. And so, like in VTubing, for example, you have like very ostensibly left-wing people and very ostensibly right-wing people put into the same room. And in real life, that would never happen. But like online, that's just something that we kind of understand, right?
Yeah.
And there's so much discourse and so much intra-community conflict because like these are people that are not united by values as would happen in like a real community. They're united by hobbies, and hobbies, they don't usually select by values, let's say.
Yeah, so I mean, I believe that like if somebody in class or whatnot is going to sit there and say like homophobic things, I think we are, or at least maybe like a couple years ago, we were like at a point where nobody really, like fewer people used gay as like an insult in this way. Like it still happens, but it was, or like the R word, right? Like people not saying these
Yeah.
things, but like online in like these communities, they go ahead and be like, oh yeah, now I can like be myself and be hateful and say like racist things and so on. And
Yeah,
there are no like consequences for it, because like within the space, if you're not hateful, you're not actually part of like this herd, this mob. So I think that is why like this push is like this hive mind thing, where they like jump onto, especially like the cutesy anime girls who are saying the hateful things that they are thinking, and be like, finally somebody says it, and they feel like validated from it.
Yeah.
So they boost like these grifters,
Yeah.
and they throw so much money at it, and
Part of
you can't really call that out, right? Like this, like you can call it out, but like there's nobody who is going to like actually punish this form of grifting and behavior.
Yeah, it is very difficult, but ultimately, I do wonder how sincere this media space is in that sense. Like, my concept is that this has happened before with something like Gamergate, to which I know a lot of the people who were like involved into like the skeptic sphere back then.
I'm just
because I
asking
happen
questions.
to like, yeah, exactly. Like those guys, a lot of them were just in it for the money, right? Like they got the audience captured and they started like maybe informing their politics over that, but they were in it for the money. There's this guy who's like Romanian V, who made videos about like, triggered SJW, whatever. But he put himself through med school thanks to that, right? And right now he's a doctor, and he makes content, but he's mostly doing it for fun at this point because he was in it for the grift. And I do wonder, when we look at like VTubers who try to be political in whatever sense, if they're not like super invested in one thing or another, how much of it is just like the grift? How much are they doing it for the money?
I think the majority of it is, especially if you look at Twitter and you look at, there was like an ASMR VTuber who lost a large chunk of their audience. And what did they do? They're like, I'm a Christian and I'm being canceled for my Christian values, and I hate these men who are pretending to be women. And then it got like 1 million impressions. And that is like, okay, you're trying to like save your career by attracting horrible people. And so I think that the majority of VTubers that are like doing these things, they don't believe any of it. It's just getting money, having financial gain, and like, a viewership at the expense of marginalized groups.
Yeah, it is something we've observed more or less. I believe I sent you an article about this, but like about 80% of like anti-trans propaganda we see online, if it is funded, has funds coming from like big oil companies or like big oil sponsored like activist groups, which means that the way I choose to read that is that these people know that the big political struggle over time is climate change, right?
Yeah.
But they are trying to like divest attention from that with trans people because it kind of triggers trans people do trigger something in the hearts of parents who are like a bit insecure about like their
Mhm.
patrilinearity or things like that. So um climate change is a problem that is like a bit abstract, but like your child maybe like sterilizing themselves or like being non-conforming is something that is not abstract at all. It's something that like they can like project into, especially if they have like conservative sensibilities. So yeah, I think it's just fear mongering. I think
Mhm.
they're not sincere about their concerns. They just they just are trying to manufacture like a culture war because they know they're destroying the planet and they want to like prolong their profit model as long as they can. So
Fear, it,
this is part of the reason. Uh-huh.
using fear is like a really good tool to get people to stop thinking rationally.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
So they're not going
And
to question anything. They're just going to be like, oh, these trans people are coming for my children. I want to like brainwash them into cutting off their genitals. And then it's like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
I will vote so these innocent trans people get put into torture camps. That's
yeah,
just
yeah.
it's just it's just fear.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
they just like stream these lies through a megaphone, and it's constantly being funded and so on. And because most people do not know a trans person, they've never spoken with a trans person,
hmm,
they just don't care. They just think, oh
hmm,
yeah, this group is out to get me because, the billionaires are telling me about this group. And they don't question anything.
yeah, yeah. There is some fear of that is native to like people's conservative impulses, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, when my mom, who I am alienated from, was like telling me this stuff about her own objections to transition, they mostly came from a place of like Christian conservative
Mm-hmm.
sort of objections, and
God
also
made you this
social
way.
reproduction. Yeah, and also social reproduction. So she was concerned, like, you're not gonna be able to have children anymore. And I was like, Mom, if you're really concerned about like trans people being able to have children, you would be advocating for like fertility clinics to be free, not for like people not to transition, right?
Yeah.
Because yeah, like we can have kids. We just have to like jump around a few hoops that we wouldn't have to if institutions were like more understanding of who we are and what we do.
I think people are just like they essentially have their belief system because they think that like the purpose of human life is to make more human life.
Mm,
And instead of like understanding that like, oh yeah, birth rates declining and so on is because everyone is struggling to get by and so on, and it's not because, oh, these trans people are mutilating themselves and not producing offspring.
mm,
It's just
yeah.
having the inability to understand the broader picture, because it's easier to just listen to the elite, the authority figures. Thinking is hard.
Mm,
And it's so easy to just be like, oh yeah, this group. Oh, if trans people wouldn't be coming for children and so, nobody would have issues with trans people. And it's like,
mm,
who taught you that? Who taught you that like trans people are coming for children?
yeah.
Like, it's just listening to propaganda and not wanting to actually change their mind and like understand these things, because they're just listening to irrational ideas, like unreasonable things.
Yeah. I think that kind of commentary also comes from a place of like profound insecurity as well, because
Mm-hmm.
like thinking about myself, there's nothing you could like condition in me so that I would stop liking women, for example, or that I would stop being trans. So like the idea that you can convince a child to be trans or gay is kind of insane to me, because like, do you think people could do that to you? Like, that's my answer to my mom. Like, for example, do you think we could? There is something I could say to you, so you started liking women,
But
for
like
example.
kids are
Like,
so impressionable. They see
yeah,
one
but
gay couple in media and then they think to themselves, I want to do that. When I was younger, I wanted to be
mm.
Spider-Man too. And I was like, just shut up. Like, come on.
I swear, there's like nothing you could do to like a kid to make them like something they found like profoundly uncool, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I've seen reactions sometimes of like kids that just by the sake of accident went to like a pride parade in those that are not like kink segregated,
Mm-hmm.
and whenever they see like someone dressed up as like a dog in part of like the leather community, they just cringe so hard. And part of me thinks like, is there something that you could do to these kids so that they would change like their baseline reaction with enough conditioning? And most of the time is no, especially when it comes to like concerning themselves, right? That's not to say that kids cannot have reactionary sentiments. Of course they can, and whenever they do, it's best if like they do not perpetuate them. But when it comes to like changing their preferences, I don't think you can change a person's preferences in that way. Like, you can't make someone like something. And yeah, I mean, that's been one of the problems that I've been having like with my audience right now, because they are used to like country balls, which I mean, I can explain what those are, but like they are, some of them are not into like the VTubing transition,
Mm-hmm.
and that just kind of goes with people's sensibilities elsewhere. Like, you can't force someone to like something, and in the same way you can't force a straight person to be gay, you can't force a trans person to be cis. So yeah, that's more or less the
I think when
the
it comes
the,
to
the baseline.
conservative spaces, the
Mm.
biggest issue is just people's refusal to break an abusive cycle. So if you are
Mm.
a cis woman and as like a young girl, you're essentially like conditioned to be like, okay, you're going to have a family, you're going to be a wife, you're going to be a mother, and so on. And then it's like, okay, but like, what about the person themselves? What about like their interests? And it's like, okay, you're getting shamed because you're 30 and you're not married yet. Oh, you focus on your
Mm.
hobbies. You would be so much happier if you had a child. And then it's like, okay, society
Mm.
is pressuring me to have children, and I don't want to have children, but I will have children, and then I'm going to, you know, condition my child, if I have a daughter, to grow up like me and also, give me grandchildren and continue the
Yeah.
cycle. So when
Yeah.
it comes to like this also happens when it comes to like gender expression, right? Like if you're a boy and you want to do stereotypical feminine things, then it's like, no, you shouldn't. You should not want to
Mm.
paint your nails. You don't want you painting your nails, that is for girls. You're not a girl, you're a boy, you have to do this. And then you see
Oh yeah.
a boy, a man with like painted nails, and then it's like, why do you do that? That is for girls. You shouldn't do that. And you continue this abuse. That is how like conservative spaces, like how the cycle keeps continuing. And when it comes to like trans
Yeah.
people, it's like, hey, I am myself. And then it's like, no, I was taught that like what I have to like who I am based on my genitalia, based on like how society conditioned me. Why do you break these boxes? No, you shouldn't. And it's not about like how you feel inside. It's not about like, you as a person and like doing what is making you comfortable. It is like, how does this make society feel that you are breaking these boundaries, these boxes?
Yeah. I have a brother who's like cishet, and he likes like painting his nails black. And my mom had a crash out about it once. I mean, I had fun with it. He didn't, but yeah, it's just like a thing that happens with some people.
Yeah, it's just like, to me it's really frustrating because like the solution is obviously to
Mm.
help people get out of like this mentality, but that is hard. It is difficult and people refuse to actually get in there, so the cycle just continues.
Yeah, yeah. What I find is most useful to, present transgender identity to conservatives is that some of them are well-meaning, in the sense that what they want from their family is to protect it, basically. And they would like to believe that their family will be protected from, for example, the world being mean. Because if you're not conforming, in any of many ways, it doesn't have to be trans, it could be whatever, right? If
Yeah.
you're not conforming in any of many ways, then your life will be harder. And some well-meaning conservatives just kind of think that, I want to protect you from not being conforming. But they are able to accept that from a place of resignation once they understand that, being trans is not a choice, right? For example, there people are normally able to have like a conservative reaction to finding out that family member is diabetic, for example. Not necessarily because, it's like a bad thing to be diabetic, but because it means a lot of changes in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, being trans is kind of like that, in the sense that it will require you to have like a lot of lifestyle changes and adjustments, and maybe you'll start using a different name, and maybe you'll have to buy different clothes. Like, I know I didn't, like things like that.
Yeah.
And then, what you do in that situation is just tell them this is something that has to happen. I guess it looks like a choice because you do need to go and buy the hormones and things like that. But
Yeah.
ultimately, the best way to get a conservative to like do that, if they're a conservative, is to put them in a situation where they have to recognize that the best way to protect their family is by being supportive of this one thing, and that it's not a choice, that it's something that has to be. And they adapt very quickly. But like the conservatives online, those ones, those ones in my mind, they're kind of lost to
As
to to
somebody,
reason. Yeah.
as somebody who has spoken to many
Hmm.
conservatives, I get the impression that a lot of these people expect or like want trans people to constantly face these roadblocks, to constantly be criticized, invalidated, challenged, and essentially abused, because they think that if you give in to that and you detransition, you were never trans to begin with, because they do not acknowledge
Mm,
your own, like, somebody's mental health. They don't acknowledge what
mm.
is like happening inside of their brain. It's just like, okay, well, I give up. I'm just a femboy now. And then it's like, okay, wow, you were never trans to begin with. We did such a cool job. And this is essentially
Yeah.
like this social conversion therapy where you're constantly berated, you're constantly harassed, you're constantly invalidated. Things are getting so hard. And you're also like struggling with like self doubt, self hatred because of all of the emotional abuse. And then it's like, okay, this is too hard. I don't want to go against this like constant harassment. I'm just going to like give in to that. They leave me alone now. And I'm sitting here and I'm still depressed. I'm still struggling because I'm obviously forced to live a lie. But they don't see that anymore. So they think that, like, oh, now you're cured. Now you're happy. Wow. You were never trans to begin with.
Yeah.
And that is why they believe that it's like essential. And if you have somebody who is supportive and it's like, oh, you're going to a therapist. Oh, you're trans. Like, these are like the steps that you have to take. And, you know, we can like help you with that. They think that is like encouragement.
Mm.
They think it's necessary to have like this pushback because otherwise, you know, you would give into something that you aren't actually, right?
I think they see it that way because to be conservative in your values means on some level like a resignation, right? Like you have to operate in the world with a certain level of resignation. There are men that maybe go into jobs they don't like simply because it makes them a lot of money, and there are like women who stay in marriages they don't like simply because it provides them stability and things like that. So if that's kind of how you live your life, then a trans person is, I guess, conceptually difficult because it is a kind of human being that, you know, by the nature of their existence is disruptive. So
Yeah.
they would like to deal with, you know, this impulse to conform in a way that mirrors the way that they deal with problems. So I guess it often comes to that, you know, to like, you know, in the case of relatives, it comes to someone realizing you developed values that are like very different from them, and then that gives them something of a struggle because they
Yeah.
don't like the idea that maybe their kids had like different values. Because in a way, for conservatives, especially for Christians, you know, when their uh, children deconvert into atheism or irreligiosity, it does feel like you failed in raising them, and that's kind of like a grief they delay or like kick down the road by saying, "Oh, I didn't fail. I'm just like not trying hard enough at like getting them to be, I don't know,
Yeah.
straight or more religious or like one of those things."
It's kind of, I mean, this is also why
Mm,
conservatives are really afraid of like LGBT
mm,
representation in media, especially when it comes to like, you know, for kids and so on, because they don't even want to have children see that there's a different path to like
mm,
heteronormativity, especially like
mm,
cishet stuff. So they think that like if you show a a child, a gay couple, that will make them gay. But in reality, it's
mm.
like, oh, if you are a gay kid and you see a gay couple, and it's like, oh wow, I didn't know I wasn't alone, right? And like for me, for instance, as like as somebody who used to be a trans kid, I didn't have representation, I didn't have education, I did no I didn't have anything where I could like point to and be like, oh, she's just like me. I now
Well,
have
speak for
words to
yourself. I
describe.
watch Ranma. Okay.
Um,
Yeah, no, I get what you mean.
and I mean to be fair, like gender swap things and so on like existed, but like not like
Mm,
in this way of like, oh, I'm a trans person, I transitioned, and you know, all of these things.
mm.
I didn't really resonate that much with like the gender swap type of things, because in a lot of instances this story is also about like them wanting to like switch back, or it was like a punishment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
Like the
like
guy
I don't
wants
want to, you
to.
know, that's, I don't know, it wasn't really like
Sure,
represent, I didn't
sure,
really
sure.
see myself there. And
Um,
but yeah,
yeah.
so I just, I'm not trans because I thought trans people existed. I am trans despite all of like these things, and I was born this way, right?
Mm,
So
yeah.
if you would show more like trans representation, you would have more kids, more trans kids be like, "Oh, I resonate with that. I now have words to describe that." And then they can go on this journey, this path to like become themselves. Not because they were
Mm,
convinced, but because they have the information. So
mm, yeah.
conservatives push the idea that like trans people are only trans because somebody groomed them into that. That like they are only cis kids, only they are only normal kids. And then I don't know, they saw like one trans person existing, and it's like, oh wow, I want to be trans now as well. And you know, that is like what they push.
Yeah. This is not the case for like every trans person I know, but like in your case, is it? Do you feel it was true that you knew you were a girl before you knew what trans was, or that like that was a thing?
The thing is, like, I know a lot of trans people who are like, oh yeah, I had like this moment where like my egg cracked and so on. I think I always just knew I would be happier as a girl. I knew I was like meant to just live my life as a girl. One of like the major moments that I had was when I was like in school, like 5th grade or so, and like, I don't know, I'm like 12 at that time, 11, 12.
Mm.
And we had English class, and like somebody was like in it was kind of like, oh, you have to introduce a partner in English. And my partner looked at the blackboard and wrote and just like read out loud she, and I was like sitting there being like, why does that feel right? And then I like started playing games with like, you know, femme characters and so on. I was like, why does it feel right when people just view me as a girl? Why is that? Like, I early on just like knew. I didn't know that trans people existed at this point. I knew femboys and like cross-dressing and so on existed, but I didn't know that you can be trans and you can transition and you have like access to puberty blockers and so on. And I was like, I was terrified of speaking out about it. I was so scared of telling anyone because I felt like so like weird, so other.
For me, it was similar because I always had like the background feeling, I guess. But then I had like 2 big fissures. The first one was really stupid. It was like when I was 14, 13, I think. I was watching a rerun of like the Scooby-Doo 2 live action. You know the one?
Oh,
and there's like a scene where they go...
with Shaggy?
Yeah, he goes into like a basement and then he starts drinking potions and like he has like the body swap moment.
Oh, yeah.
And part of me was like, this tickles my brain a little too much.
Yeah.
This tickles my brain a little too much.
Yeah.
And then I started like watching like similar scenes in like my mom's laptop. And eventually I found, you know, transition timelines of like people who did this thing of like, you know, oh, I take a picture every day while on estrogen. And then I'm slowly like seeing every single day of my transition and seeing how my face changes. And in that sense, like, I saw that and I realized it could be an option for me, but I understood that because of my family, it would like never be something that they would accept. You know, they would most likely be super punitive about it. And then when I was older, I watched ContraPoints, and I guess, you know, she kind of like woke me to understanding a little bit more about like trans people who like actually transition and made a point to talk about it. Because I think transition timelines did exist back then, but transition, you know, experience discussions, they were a lot rarer.
Yeah.
And you know, part of the reason why I appreciate you and like kind of the role that you have on the internet right now is that you do a lot of like you do procure giving trans people a space to like discuss their experiences.
Yeah.
Because the discussion of experiences, that is something very 2020s, 2010s. It's not something that existed a long time before.
I think that
like right now I don't love ContraPoints.
I mean, you know, Zionism or something, right? The thing is like, gotta beep that out because, you know, otherwise YouTube is going to hate me.
Sure.
So the thing is like, this is kind of like why I like doing this podcast, because like I only have like my experience and I upload these videos, you know, like I have uploaded videos like this and I read the comments and I hear like different perspectives as well. But I have like my experience, especially, you know, I have very clear trans woman experience. I'm very binary in my gender, and so it's nice to have like a space where people can share their journeys, their experiences, and so on.
Yeah, me too. I guess what would make us more different from like what I understand your discussion of dysphoria to be and what
Mm-hmm.
mine is that I have very quiet dysphoria, like
Mm-hmm.
really, really quiet. And the way I experienced my dysphoria for a very long time is that it was like numbness, you know, like
Yeah.
I could live and I could perform and I could do like a bunch of things in life that felt like okay. You know, I think I could have been like like a man if I was completely good at ignoring it because I was very good at it. But
Mm-hmm.
like my my life didn't really feel good in the sense that I felt like I
Yeah.
was experiencing life behind a screen. You know, my eyes were a screen. And ever since I was like very young, I had this like dissociative, I think it's called maladaptive daydreaming, where you imagine your life and you imagine yourself in like different scenes. And that's just kind of like how you experience emotions, right? Because you don't like being in your body.
Yeah.
And um, with time, when I started being into like my mid 20s, I was like, holy shit, I can't do this anymore. I'm losing like 4 hours a day
Mm-hmm.
at like to maladaptive daydreaming. So if I want to have a life, if I want to have a career, if I want to do like whatever, I really do need to transition because otherwise I'm
Yeah.
not going to do it. So like from the moment I had that realization to like the moment I transitioned, it was like 36 hours. And then I was on hormones in like a matter of months. But like I think I would have realized that a lot sooner about myself if I could just be in a more accepting environment, you
Yeah.
know? Because you know, the fact that I wasn't probably took like years from my life.
Sometimes I feel like
You-
I was
Mhm.
trans too early. Because like, you know, when
Before
I
it was
was
cool. Uh-huh.
yeah, like when I was like 12 and 13 and so on, and I looked up, oh, why do I want to wake up as a girl all the time? Most of the things, most of the resources that I found was just like kink stuff, right? And
Mm.
then I was like in this state of like, okay, I don't like I'm just numb. I'm disassociating. I'm not really doing anything. I don't really care about anything. My happiest moments moments when I'm distracted from my dysphoria.
Mm.
But even then, I'm just not living as myself, right? And it's a problem. Like I don't get to make experiences as myself. And then with
Mm.
22, I was like, okay, I can't take it anymore. Like I'm just depressed. I don't. And then it took me years to actually start HRT and so on. And then
Yeah.
still, I had this stage of like things didn't feel better. They actually got worse. They got more complicated. And
Mm.
I mean, I'm not where I wish I was, but I'm at a better place now. But I had to
Yeah, I get
fight through a lot um in order to get there.
you. Mm.
And like for me, bottom surgery helped a lot. I think that was like a major turning point where like I was just like, okay, this was a huge step. This is like a huge point of relief. And because like for me I had like a lot of restrictions. I restricted myself when it comes to relationships and so on, right?
Like you
And
imposing restrictions on yourself, or like what do
yeah,
you mean?
I restrict like I just isolated myself. I was like anxious. I didn't really feel like I
Mm.
could have a relationship because I felt gross about thinking about being in a relationship with the body that I had.
I see. Yeah.
And like
In
for
my.
me it was like
Mhm.
it was really clear from really early on, right? That's kind of like what I mean. Like I was just born too early because if I would have like the same experience, maybe like a better environment, right? It was
Mm.
just
Yeah.
maybe like 10 years, you know, born later, I would have probably gone into like a different journey. I would have probably like discovered myself earlier and like started all of like the process. But
I think as trans people, it's gonna be really important that we argue for reparations when all of this is over. Because we have very good grounds to argue for reparations, and we do need them in a bunch of ways. Like, every trans woman gets like, I don't know, like $20,000 for reparations for
It's
transphobia experienced between like the 2020s.
It's not enough.
I mean, I don't know.
But yeah,
just like $20 in a mule, whatever that is.
I want to fight for a society where trans people do not have to go through all of like these hardships, because I think that like, even though I can't really change my past, I can't really change all of these things, I can make it at least a little bit better for the future.
What would you do in a world with no transphobia? What do you think your life would have been?
I feel like I can't really imagine a world where there's no transphobia, because I think that like you being trans will always have some negative impact on your life. Like it will have some struggles, but I feel like a world where there's less transphobia and where people are actually like funding trans healthcare and so on, it would probably push for like, also improvements like for cis people as well when it comes to like healthcare and whatnot. But it's just, I think there's always going to be a point where it's like, I don't think that like dating of like for as a trans woman is going to be like the same experience as like dating for a cis woman, even in a world where there's no transphobia.
I see.
So I'm kind of like, I don't know if there would ever be like some utopia, but like I would probably like struggle less when it comes to like self-acceptance and worth and self-hatred, right? Because these are things that come from being constantly criticized, from constantly being invalidated, not necessarily from the fact that I am just trans. But I think
I would do largely the same things I'm doing right now, but I would have a lot less arguments, like with Deb or something.
Oh my god. Yeah.
That has been our shared adventure. Do you want to like share it to the chat? Like what that was?
Do you want to talk about my experience with a short fat otaku? Is that something? I don't know. Like, I mean, I made my video on it, right? Like, I made my video on it. I talked about it, and I think that it's like kind of just over. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we got closer because of it. Right?
Yeah, it was our shared adventure. Our multiplayer game. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's like how I got closer with Anna Valence because of the Kirche situation and so on. It's just like, if you're targeted by like same, like it's kind of like a bonding experience. And I think when it comes to like transphobia, within like trans spaces, it's very uniting, even though that like, leftist spaces and like trans spaces have like a lot of like infighting as well. But I think that it's always like a bonding experience to be like, oh, we are struggling the same way we are.
Yeah, I guess in a world with no transphobia, I would have a lot less debates like that one. That's just kind of like what I would say. Because really, what interests me most of the time is like, the reason I got interested in history is because I come from a very dysfunctional family. And I kind of wanted to look behind at the history of the world to see, well, how do people solve problems? How do people do things, and what can I do with my life in such a way that I will like get things done that I want to get done. And my interest in that sense was like very personal and egoistic, because I wanted to like get out of these things. And honestly, therapy would have been more useful.
Mm-hmm.
But like in the end, I did live with like a bunch of knowledge in regard to these things. And uh, something I appreciate is that it gave me a good like political instinct to identify when people are like coding selfish desires behind like political language. And I think the only thing I will say in regards to like this situation is that chasers are literally that.
Yeah.
They have like this egotistical desire for trans women, maybe because like they fetishize us, or maybe because they feel like, a trans girl might be someone that has like lower self-esteem in some
Mm-hmm.
situations,
It's
and thus she
very
might be like more
manipulative,
more
and
accommodating than a cis woman. Yeah, 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 yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's kind of
Mhm.
tr- chasers get away with more when they go
Yeah,
after trans women instead of cis women.
yeah, because it's not like they go for trans women that are like very established. They go for trans women that
It's
are
kind of
not necessarily.
it's
Mhm.
kind of how like men fetishize women with mental illnesses.
Yeah. Or also this thing that is super weird, which is like guys that are into blondes. I mean, I'm sorry if you're into blondes in chat. I don't mean to like put you down, but like if you would not date a woman if she wasn't blonde, or if she was blonde and if she dyed her hair black for some reason,
Mm-hmm.
that would be like a deal breaker for you. I think that speaks a bit ill of your character, because it's kind of like pointing to the fact that you have like a fundamental interest in a person on the basis of something that's shallow. Like being trans is shallow in the end. It's a trait. You might
Yeah.
as well not be trans. Yeah, yeah. And in a world where you know trans people could get like a magical potion that made us like cis, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
um chasers would be depressed because they wouldn't have like the experience of a trans body, I guess. So yeah, I mean, it is fetishistic. It is something that I don't like, and I often, discourage our younger sisters whenever I see them going for like a guy like that.
I think when it
I
comes
get what
to
you why. Mhm,
chasers,
mhm.
it's also like a power dynamic, right?
Mm,
It's like
yeah.
a lot of trans women, we don't have like the luxury of having like an average job because of like discrimination, and
Mm,
a lot of them are like forced to do sex work. A lot of our value is based on like how we look and how we perform for others, and
mm,
chasers want to like exploit this, right? And
mm,
especially like if there's a guy who maybe has like a stable income, can like offer these things, there's a lot of these men will like abuse their position of power. And so that's kind of like how I perceive chasers as well, as because we are being seen as
mm,
like other, we are like a subcategory of women or of men, depending on like which transphobic dumbass you ask. um But
yeah.
it's like we're not being seen as equal to cis people. And a lot of, I think all chasers don't want to view us as equal, because that would mean they would have less power over us.
Mm.
So it's like
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
it's wild to
mhm,
me that like people expect me to like debate people who view me as lesser, and who
yeah,
feel entitled to me. That like
yeah.
I have to debate them. I have to like justify why I'm, you know, worthy, why
Mm,
I'm why I have
yeah.
value, other than like, oh, you need to, if you're a trans woman, well, why do you sound like that? Why do you look that like that? Why do you act like that? You gotta sound feminine. You gotta sound like cis women. You gotta sound like the women that I like. You gotta look like the women that I like. You gotta put in all of the effort, and so on. And it's like very controlling.
Mm. Yeah, I I believe it's unreasonable to expect so much from a person, but it is also what's expected of women most of the time. I think
Mhm.
women just get treated very poorly in society. That's
Oh yeah,
that's
like
just
it is
my sense. Yeah.
misogyny, but the thing is like
Yeah.
the difference. Like obviously we live in a society right now where
Mm,
misogyny is like more normalized than it has been in a while. But transphobia is just like repackaging misogynistic talking points and
yeah.
and we have nobody who's like fighting back against it, right? Like there's no chivalry for trans women, right? It's just like repackaging
Mm,
of like, oh, you're being unladylike. This is not how real
mm,
women are supposed to act like. And now it's phrased as like, this is not how biological women act.
yeah.
You're so male
Yeah. Yeah.
coded.
Yeah. Got it.
You're male socialized, right? Like it's just repackaging transphobia is just
Uh-huh.
repackaging misogynistic talking points and making it even more palatable for a misogynistic, hateful,
Mhm.
ignorant society.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, like I'm quite tomboyish in like my presentation. Maybe not like my daily life, because like in my daily life I am a very conforming person, but like in my presentation I am not.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense that I'm a bit of a tomboy, right? Like even if I pass.
Mm-hmm.
And the greatest problem that I have talking to some relatives about it is that, what do you mean you're trans? You're going to Pokemon, right? Like, what do you mean you're trans? You never
Yeah.
like wanted to do things like that. And I was like, that doesn't matter. There are like girls that are into Pokemon, and like things like that, you know?
When I came
Ah,
out, when I
that's
came
my.
when I came out to my mom, she was like, "No,
Hmm.
you're not. I would have known. I would have known you're trans." Like
Yeah, mine
she
was the
thought
same.
I was like non-binary or like agender because like there's no way I could ever be like a trans woman because I didn't want to go shopping with her.
Mm. I mean, I wouldn't want to go shopping with my mom simply because I don't
Yeah,
like her taste in clothes. Like,
I mean
no, mom, you're
it's
stuck
just
in the
like
80s. Like,
first of all, if I
Mhm.
went out there with my mom, I would she put me to like the men's section or like the boys
Mm,
section and so on. Like I don't
yeah.
I don't want to be in there. But then there's like this idea of like, oh, if you're a trans girl, if you're a trans woman, why are you not how I would have raised my daughter?
Yeah, yeah, my mom's the same. Like, I think one of the things that frustrates her about me coming out so late is that I am very assertive. And
Mm-hmm.
had I been cis, she would have, like, beaten into me a personality that was very different. Like,
Yeah.
she doesn't like that I speak back and that I am, like, someone who affirms herself.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, she's an anti-feminist right now, so I guess
Makes
that sucks.
sense.
But, like, yeah, she got captured by, like, this kind of, like,
Conservative.
political
Yeah.
conservative stuff. But when I say that, I don't mean in the sense that like, your normal person is conservative. She's like part of a cult, kind
Oh.
of like a cult within Catholicism called the Legionaries of Christ, which were founded by a child molester. But like, what's news with
Oh my
that church?
god.
Yeah,
Jesus.
yeah, 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 yeah,
But yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's like that is kind of like how like TERFs push like this, oh, you're male socialized and so on, right? Like it's TERF
Yeah, yeah,
rhetoric.
yeah.
It was coined by a TERF. But like it's just like this idea of like, oh, you're a trans woman, but you're not acting in the same way as cis women do due to how society socializes daughters.
Mm.
And that is somehow a bad thing, right? Like when I had bottom surgery and made like a meme picture about like dilating, right? Like it's I most of the people who attacked me were TERFs, were women, conservative women, being like, why does this trans woman talk about female healthcare when I am ashamed of having to have like female healthcare because like they were socialized this way. They were abused this way to not have this, right? Like, why do trans
Mm.
women have joy in their womanhood when I was socialized and raised to be ashamed of it?
Yeah, yeah.
And
Like I gotta say that that's not even like that weird. Like I mean,
yeah,
in my faculty's group of like female researchers, and like the latest conversation that I'm seeing right there in the group chat is like women recommending like gynecologists to each other, like,
Hmm.
hey, do you like this gyno, is she like good to you? And people are like, yeah, or they're like, no. And then, you know, in those kinds of environments, like women talk about that stuff all the time. It's not
Yeah.
even not even controversial,
But
right?
you can
It's the
only
same with like the
talk with other women about these things. You can only talk about
yeah.
women because it's just like it's not socially acceptable to talk about female healthcare because it's
Hmm.
so portrayed as like gross and icky. Like it's just
Yeah. I think it's just boys that don't like to hear that, but like it's whatever. You know, the boys that are worthwhile and worth your time, they won't care.
I mean
They'll
it's
be
it's
interested
also
actually. Yeah.
because it's like
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
never taught. I mean, they think that
Mm.
like they think about when it comes to like vaginas, they think about urine comes from the same place as a baby. And
Oh
it's
yeah. Do you know two
it's
whole theory?
it's just like
Uh.
it's just like how society and how the patriarchy works by like portraying
Mm,
natural things as like something gross, and that is like
mm,
how oppression works, right? That is
mm,
how that's the reason why like female healthcare in general is like it's never actually is studied. There's no research there, and it's just like a form of like control of oppression.
mm.
And like trans
Yeah.
people, we are like, okay, now I'm going like I'm fighting to be a woman, to live as a woman, and despite all of like these horrible things, and that would give cis women the impression that there's nothing wrong with being a woman. And this patriarchy, the sexist society, can't have that.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, part of what conforms me a lot is that online these things like rarely leave the real world when it comes to like actual interactions between people. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, with the bathroom conversation, I go to a gym where I shower like in the women's section, right? And
Yeah.
literally nobody cares. I think one of the things that people don't really know, especially if they don't go in gyms, and I think that's kind of the problem, right? That a lot of the people
Yeah.
who are like super interested in the bathroom conversation are not necessarily the people that go to gyms, right? they they ignore the fact that whenever you go to a gym, you are used to the fact that the people that will go there are people who have bodies they're not happy with. You know, they are
Mm-hmm.
people who are trying to body build in one of many ways. They are trying to like get their body to look different, or maybe get their body to look more like something else. Or if they have a body that is very fit, like they are trying to keep it fit. So whenever you go to like a gym shower, it's just kind of understood that you are going to see a lot of bodies that are non-conforming
Yeah.
in one way or another, either because people are super fit or super unfit or like somewhere in the middle, things like that.
It's like
And
people
yeah,
shaming those
mhm.
that are like overweight for going to a gym and working out to improve their bodies.
Yeah, in
Right?
social media that
It's
happens, but like in actual gyms, people are super supportive of people who
yeah.
go there.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
like it's inspiring, right? Like it's
Yeah,
like
they are.
you are working to better yourself, and it's like
Hmm.
that's a good thing that should be like celebrated. But like on social media, if you're
Hmm.
not a supermodel, then you shouldn't even like be allowed to exist, even though most of like
Yeah,
these people just they don't take care of themselves. They don't
yeah.
do anything.
Hmm. I think ultimately what will start changing all this culture is just time,
Mm-hmm.
because the same thing happened in Gamergate a very long time ago, in the sense that there used to be these spaces that were like very vocally possessed by relatively right-wing conservative men, but as time went on, it became more visible that these spaces were like very diverse.
Mm-hmm.
The diversity was just hidden, and slowly but surely, you know, as people became more aware of this reality, then the sort of like meanness and tinge that the right-wing gaming space used to have, slowly but surely went away.
Yeah.
And I think that what
They
will
cling
happen
on
in
to it.
VTubing, yeah. What will happen in VTubing will be similar, I think, because
Yeah.
as more creatives arrive, and as you get more legitimacy as a medium, you invite a regular critique that is normal to the other arts. So that is feminist critique, that is like intersectional critique, that is historical critique, that is Marxist critique.
Yeah.
And the moment that these things start being necessary as the medium is taken more seriously, the more the like chuds will slowly be faced and kicked out, because nobody likes enjoying a hobby like gyms or whatever, if you constantly have to interact with toxic people in the hobby. But
Mm-hmm.
like if the hobby is worthwhile,
Yeah.
then people will be attracted to it and will want to push out like the toxic elements. So that's kind of what I'm edging on right now
Ravi, I have
with
to
the
rush to the bathroom real quick. You can keep talking. You can make this point because like I have something to add, but I'll
sure,
be right
sure.
back. I'm 9% faster if you need.
Okay. Okay. Now I'm alone with you guys. Hello. Okay, so now that Niara is gonna wait, do you guys mind if I tell you like secrets about her? I don't know. Let's I'm gonna take off my hat because like we're relaxing right now. I can yeah. We can discuss. I mean, ask me questions. I'm not gonna know what to ask. Yeah, I'm a YouTuber alone with us. Yeah. Hello. Spill the tea. I mean, you have to ask me something. She's like a very normal girl. Like that's the thing with Niara. She's like super normal. She's like super nice. She's just been put in a position where she has to like often fight this internet fight, and I think I don't know. Be nice to her, please, because in a different situation, I think she would just be like a very normal. What's your favorite pizza topping? I'm vegetarian, so like I normally just eat vegetables. But before that, I was like Hawaiian. I like the pineapple on pizza. I think the most embarrassing thing I've ever done as like a person that tries to be woke, I guess, was that I asked a girl that was Hawaiian how she felt about SpongeBob. So that was like my least woke moment ever. Are you back? Are you back, Niara? I saw something moved. Okay, well, maybe she's not back. Yeah, I asked a Hawaiian girl like if how she felt about SpongeBob as a Hawaiian. So that was like the most awkward thing I've ever done, I think. But I have
Oh my
autism,
god.
so it's okay.
I have returned.
Hello.
Oh.
Okay, I'm putting my hat back on.
Okay. Um
Mhm.
so with the Gamergate situation, right? Like I used to watch Aspirations. And at some point I was watching it and I was like, I was like still in this phase of like, oh yeah, sometimes he says things that I like agree with, and sometimes he says things that are just like, kind of stupid. But then like this like sweet baby ink situation was like, and at some point I was just like, they cry so much about women just existing and having like a female protagonist in a video game. They complain so much. They constantly whine. Like with the woke stuff, right? They have an entire list of games that you should avoid because, I don't know, there is DEI messaging because some character uses they them pronouns or something. And it's just constantly complaining. It's constant whining. And I wonder, like, these people, at what point are you going to like sit there and be like, this is embarrassing? Like, I just don't know what to say. Like, it's just, they whine
I think
because they have the ability to choose which way
yeah,
NPCs refer to you.
yeah. I think as I said, there's probably not gonna be a world where we ever like phase out these people completely. I see them as like
Mm-hmm.
anti-vaxxers. Uh, Generally, what we do in like statistic studies that are trying to work with people who operate vaccination is that we try to make the world safe, considering there are some people that will never get vaccinated. Like, we have to account for anti-vaxxers now. So, in that sense, I think, we need to account for a world where these sort of like the Lulu right-wingers will always exist
Yeah.
and try to make like the world safe despite them.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so when it comes to like the Anita Sarkeesian stuff, like, and the Sweet Baby Ink stuff, I was like, there are people who choose to care about this and be angry about this and like make it like so much of their life, to the point where they lose friendships and to the point where they, don't do other things that would maybe bring them more joy. And like, by the end of the day, I think that the best thing you can do with that sort of person is just leave them to their media diet, because they're usually very invested and they won't change it. But we can spend our energy creating spaces that are, safe and welcoming and content, such that if they ever get out, they have somewhere cozy and safe to land, instead of, the bad spaces that they're on.
Mm-hmm.
Because by the end of the day, they're victims of a grift, right? Like,
Yeah.
we have to understand that if you're like Alex Jones, for example, if everything you're doing all the time is just alarming people and making them angry about like how the state of the world is and things like that, then you're not really changing anything, like, at least MAGA as a movement has like political aspirations, but there are many content creators that talk about video games or talk about media or whatever, that don't really want to translate those aspirations into anything. They are just capturing audiences and then keeping those audiences engaged in like a certain way of doing things and a certain media consumption cycle. And the problem with those guys,
the
yeah,
fact
yeah,
that like there's so much political violence, so much hatred, so much propaganda when it comes to like,
yeah,
anti-trans, like trans people, LGBTQ people in general, like all of the anti-trans stuff. We are not in a position of power, right? Like Trump and so on, like the rise of like all of these right-wing fascist parties and whatnot all around the world. Like, we are not in a position of power, but all of these content creators are doing is still whine and be like, oh, the woke is ruining these games. It's not the shareholders. It's not, how like games are just unfinished and, storylines being cut and creators being forced out.
yeah.
The rise with like AI slop and so on. It's never about that. It's just about, oh, somebody who is like a lead designer of this team has pronouns on their LinkedIn profile. That's what they complain about. That's what they've complained about for the last 10 years.
This is why
you don't get to enjoy like passion projects, and whatnot. Like, you don't get to enjoy games that are actually finished, that are affordable, that do not have like the majority of their content locked behind DLCs,
paywalls and stuff.
Yeah, you constantly see microtransactions, you constantly like see all of these things, but that's not what they complain about. It's like, oh, one voice actor, one voice actress is trans.
Yeah, I heard there were people like right now losing their mind because like the voice actor of Pragmata is black, I think. I might I'm not 100% sure on that, but I read that it upset a lot of people who believe that. It's just a very exhausting way to live life. And I think engaging them is like also a very exhausting way to live life. So honestly, I think I just should encourage people to like support the people who are creating things that are positive and that bring you enjoyment. Because if you're coming back from like your 8-hour shift to go online and get angry at what Asmongold says, I think that's just like a very sick way to like treat your health and your mental headspaces. But by the end of the day, we have like a limited amount of time on Earth. And even if you're doing activism for like any of many issues, like I'm not even saying that, people should have like specific values if they don't have them, but like if that's how, if you're already putting yourself to stress through like work or maybe relationships or things like that, going online and then picking fights with people because you don't like woke video games, that seems like such a waste of time.
If I make a
It's such a
tweet,
waste of time.
if I make a
Mhm.
tweet and I call myself a fox girl, people will get angry at me calling me a girl. They're going to sit in the comments be like, "Don't you
Uh-huh.
mean boy? Haha, you're actually a boy.
A
Oh my god, you
fox
will never be
boy.
a girl." Like
Oh my god, a
it's like,
fox
can you
boy.
imagine? I cannot imagine. First
Mhm.
thing that I'm going to do when I open my eyes is to go online, look out for all of the trans people that I hate and follow, and look at uh how they refer to themselves and correct them. Like I cannot imagine they do that for fictional characters too, right? They see somebody
Maybe they're bots.
called
Yeah,
Bridget,
I don't know.
you know,
Mhm.
she, and they will sit in the comment like, he is a man. Like obvious, yeah, bots, right? There are
Yeah,
people
yeah,
who
yeah, yeah.
think this way.
Yeah, do you think there might be like an actual person that's like, I don't know, they triggered like the bell on your Twitter and they're just like waiting for you to post something
Oh,
to like,
100%. Oh, a hundred
oh
percent.
my
There's
god,
someone out,
what a waste
especially
of
like those that are
time.
monetizing that, right? There's so many people who are
Oh
they're
my god.
VTubers. There are VTubers who got like, I don't know,
Uh-huh.
15,000 likes harassing me and made it their entire personality to constantly like, I don't know, shit talk me and
Mm,
lie about me or like call me a man or something, and get rewarded for
that's
that. 100% there are sitting some people who hate me, who despise me, who play me for like all of like the
mm,
horrible things in their lives, and they get like a little bit of like joy from like having like some form of like power by harassing me. 100%.
mm. Oh my god.
And there are
Yeah, well, I just
people,
feel sad for them then.
yeah, there,
Mhm.
there are people, there are content creators, there are like V-tweeters and whatnot, who literally, they post my tweets for monetary gain. Because
Mm,
nobody
yeah.
cares about them as a person. They need me to exist so
To farm you. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they can like point the finger at me and be like, "Oh my god, Nyara saying ridiculous things again. Actually, you are horrible." And then they get like 25,000 likes. There are
Mm.
bots, of course, right? But I feel
If
like
they're not actual
it's
bots, they're mentally bots.
like
That's kind
it's
of
just
a
it's cattle. They are cattle.
yeah, yeah.
But it
Mm,
blows
mm.
my mind. It blows my mind that there are genuinely human beings who have so little to give to the world that all that they are doing is to just harass trans people.
Yeah, I mean, where is the scapegoat? I think it was Italian socialists who coined this phrase of like, fascism is the socialism of fools. No, anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is the socialism of fools. And more or less what these Italian socialists were trying to get at was that, a lot of people are able to have like a good critique of the system that they live in if they can frame that critique as the fault of Jewish people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think what we're seeing right now is that transphobia has become a sort of like 21st century anti Semitism, in the sense that a lot of people are edging on the concept of a trans person in order to like weaponize people's prejudices against us and blame us for like everything that's wrong on society. And yeah, I mean, it's bad in the sense that there's a lot of problems that people have in relation to like healthcare or, as I said before, climate change or like any of many things that they're not paying attention to because they're busy hating trans people. And in that sense, they are being played for fools.
Yeah.
They have within them, they have in their hearts the impulse to look at the world and try to describe some sort of systemic critique of why things are rigged in one way or another. But instead of like correctly identifying the true people that are behind like the awful things of the system, they place the blame on trans people.
Yeah.
Like it was kind of amazing to me that the Trump campaign, whenever it was going on, had this like slogan of like, Kamala Harris is for they them, Trump is for you. And what was so funny for me is that Kamala Harris wasn't even that supportive of trans people. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't even uh, I wasn't even under the impression that she had like pro-trans policies in terms of like,
Her
access
stance
to
was
spaces
like,
or like access to HRT.
yeah, it was like, oh, let the states
Mhm.
decide, which is not
Yeah,
necessarily
let
a
the states.
pro-trans position, but it's just the
Yeah.
thing is like, in the US, because it's a two-party system, the
Mhm.
Democrats, they are like fake opposition. They are not left wing. It is not right wing versus left wing. It is far right, not necessarily versus
Yeah.
right. And
What I believe is that they are liberals. And liberals kind of are, by and large, people who created revolutions in the 19th century, who turned those revolutions into institutions.
mhm,
And right now, those people are very invested in protecting institutions because they're the thing that they achieved. In the mind of the liberal, what they did is that they created revolutions so that nobody else would have to create a revolution. And if you're trying to solve problems outside of like their institutions, they feel like their revolution is being attacked. But the problem is that in a lot of instances, their revolution is like no longer solving problems, right?
I
So
believe
people are
that
reasonably desperate. Uh-huh.
a
Hmm.
majority, like when it comes to like capitalism and so on, like if you look
Hmm.
at society, like it's been declining for a really long time in a lot
Yeah.
of aspects, right? And they've been
Hmm.
clinging on to this time where they still profited from the
Yeah, where
system,
things were still working, where
and
they
they
still were the
believe
progressives. Yeah.
they
Hmm.
believe that in order to get back to that, they need to like reinforce reinforce the status quo that existed, right? Like people, when it comes to like trans
Hmm.
rights, people don't want to like fight for more acceptance and so on. They want to fight for when trans people were invisible, like 15 years ago or something, right? They want to like fight to get to a point where it used to be not to actually make progress in society. But like the system inevitably is going to go to like it's been on a downward like spiral for a really long time, and
Hmm.
it's because like the system fundamentally is designed this way. And I think that's what a lot of liberals do not understand, is that going back to the how it used to be doesn't actually work when
Yeah, to the 90s. The 90s are
yeah
gone. Get over it. Yeah.
yeah like everything is just like at a decline, and just going back 10, 15, 30 years ago is just, it's not going to fix this. There needs to be actual change.
Yeah. Yeah. Ultimately, what worries me is like the trickle down effects of the United States elsewhere,
Mm-hmm.
because they have a lot of money and a lot of power to just kind of export their ideologies to other parts of the world.
Yeah.
So right now in Mexico, for example, where I live, it is very safe to be trans if you are relatively protected by your intersections. Because, for example, HRT is over the counter. Like you can buy it without a recipe. Even you
Mm-hmm.
just go to like the pharmacy and yeah, you buy it and you take it home. It's a bit more expensive than other medications, of course. So
Yeah.
there are ways in which it is cost prohibitive, but ultimately, uh, there's a problem where, for example, American trans people who live relatively close to the Southwest can't get access to HRT anymore, and so they go to Mexico to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
And I have sympathy for them because they do come over and they um, are taking like care that they need, but they are driving prices up for like everyone here
Yeah.
because they engage in this sort of like you know international trade mechanic. And ultimately, I will support trans people in this situation, and I think that what Mexico has to do is like increase the supply, because the alternative is like letting these trans people die.
Yeah.
But ultimately, this is a problem created by like US internal policy, right? Like
Mhm.
they have bad healthcare, and we deal with the consequences of them having bad healthcare. And I think in places that are like very influenced by American media, especially Europe, where I'm more familiar with things, or like Brazil, for example, we see increasingly situations where US foreign intervention, or like US discourse, gets imported back into countries that are just like, friendly to the United States. So that's most of why they worry me right now, because like internal politics in um, the US are very toxic, and they are doing very little to improve them, the Democrats, I think. What the Democrats should do, I believe, is get a position where they more vividly incorporate reforms. But they don't want to be that, they want to
Yeah.
be like the centrist party. They want to take fucking Liz Cheney to like Michigan, which is a state that is like 50, which has like the biggest Arab minority in the US, and say like, oh look, this is like the person whose dad made the Iraq war. Like, look at her. We're in the center. Vote for us. Like, they're so
It's
tone deaf.
like
I don't even. Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
thing
yeah,
is like when it comes to like Democrats, I think that
yeah. Mm-hmm.
a lot of liberals is on they don't want to win.
You think they
Like
don't want to win?
they do not want to win, right? Like that's why a lot of
Mm-hmm.
like policies and so on, like there's this thing with like the rotating, what is it, rotating evil, I don't know, chat can help me.
Lesser of
Rotating
two
villain,
evils?
the rotating villain,
Ah.
where it's like Democrats will vote in favor of Republican bills and so on when
Mm.
they are not up for election, re-election, or they are going to retire and so on. So they
Mm.
constantly they just barely lose. But like it's just because a lot of Democrats and so on don't want to win because they are funded by mega corpos and whatnot, right? Like that's kind of
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
what
yeah.
capitalism does, right? They go into like different countries, use their power and so on to like oppress everyone, be corrupt, destroy everything, and then go back into their countries and like lobby into like get like all of the politicians so they can like keep doing this and keep making it worse and so on.
Yeah. What
And
we're trying to do in Mexico right now that I kind of enjoy is like maximum campaign donations. So if you're an
mhm,
individual, after a certain point, you can't give any more money to a politician. Like
yeah,
there's a maximum money.
I think
Yeah, yeah.
Australia also did that. But yeah, like
Yeah, it works everywhere.
when it comes to like
Mhm.
Germany, for instance, right? Like Elon
Mhm.
Musk pumps a lot of money into like the AFD and also like the propaganda. Like AFD, like right wing propaganda on social media, especially like Facebook and so on, where there are a lot of old people, a lot of like vulnerable people who are like, you know, giving into
Mhm.
like this right wing propaganda. There's so much. There's like a flood of like right wing propaganda, and Twitter and so on,
Mhm.
like also like boost this, artificially inflates like right wing propaganda and so on. That is how like the US keeps meddling with EU politics, because ultimately, as like a capitalist, as somebody who wants to become a trillionaire, Elon Musk hates regulations. He hates
Mhm.
the EU for making him stick to certain regulations. So he wants to
Mhm.
do whatever he can in order to destabilize the EU.
Wait, why can he give money to German politicians if he's not German? He can just do that. Like, can I give money to the Linke right now if I want? I don't know.
I mean, I don't necessarily know how like exactly it
Okay,
works.
okay,
It's
okay.
just like using like
Mm-hmm.
right wing propaganda and whatnot. Like you always see like
Mm.
the secret funding and so on. But like that is why he loves, like he uses his voice, his platform to be like, oh yeah, the AFD is the hope for Germany, in order to like, you know, impact people or like suppress those that are pushing back against it, right? Like pro EU things are getting suppressed in the algorithm. That's kind of like what I mean with like, you know, boosting and amplifying
Okay,
these things. Not necessarily like a
yeah.
monetarily supporting these parties, but also just
Yeah, no, I
amplifying
get
their
what you mean.
voices and pushing
He
the
does throw
propaganda.
his weight behind the AFD. I saw that he went on like he went on like a panel with the AFD and said like, "Oh, you are the future of Europe," and
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of people in France were like, "Oh my God, what is this guy
Elon
doing?"
Musk went into a room full of people whose ancestors were most likely Nazis and be like, Germany needs to get over their history.
Yeah, we need to like forget about the past.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, like right now that Germany is rearming, for example, because it's trying to like resupply itself vis-a-vis Russia. Like people in France are losing their minds because it's like, oh no, the Germans are rearming again. Oh my God, we have to do something.
I mean,
And
conservatives have
yeah,
always like kind of created systems for like fascists once they take over to just like exploit it. That's kind of like what I'm worried about, right?
Yeah, because like by the end of the day, like all this money being used into weapons is money that's not being put into healthcare, that's not being put into like the retirement age. At least in France, retirement is very important right now because there are a lot of people who are very old and they are not going to be like accurately replaced by the younger population. So that's a problem. But you know, instead of talking about these things that, for example, you and I are capable of discussing, they want to talk about trans people, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of like my gripe with a lot of them. Oh well, oh well.
I think that liberals believe that the reason why they keep losing and, you know, is because they care too much about marginalized groups, which is like, you know, obviously a lie. But it's like, oh, if right wingers stop saying that we support trans people, then normal average voters will go in there and vote for us, because now actually we can say, no, we actually want to kill trans people too. And it's like, okay, so that's not how it works. Like, that's not how it works. And you're just not making your party out to be an option for those that are scared for their lives. They want to see change. Because all that you're doing is like, you concede and compromise. You don't really stand for anything. It's just like, oh, if right wingers are going to be like, no, actually, we have all of like these issues because the Democrats want women to have the right to vote. If the Democrats are going to sit there and be like, no, actually, we want to abolish like women's voting rights as well, like, who is going to be like, oh yeah, finally, okay, actually, now we can vote the Democrats because finally they say it too, right? Like, it's just, you are still going to pick the far right option if you have like beliefs like this.
Yeah.
So like, why the fuck do you concede to that?
We know from history that this kind of thing doesn't work because like in the, I think 1932, 1936 German election, there was this moment where, you know, Hitler was elected, right? Like Hitler won his election.
Yeah.
And the Germans, you know, like the Communist Party of Germany, the KPD under Thalmann, basically told the SPD like, oh my God, we can't allow fucking Hitler to like take power. This fucking sucks. We need to do like an uprising, you know, like in the earlier German Revolution that was going on a couple of years ago. And then the SPD was like, no, he won. I think the institutions will hold back Hitler. And eventually the SPD was like kicked out along with the communists.
The thing is like,
so yeah, you know, capitulating doesn't work.
Yeah, the thing is like, you know, all of these people who opposed Hitler and so on are like being celebrated, right? Like he won with like a huge majority, right? And he was able to like take over and so on, but there were still like a couple of people who were voting against him, and then being like sent to uh prison camps and concentration camps and so on. But like they are being remembered, right? Like in Berlin, there's a like a
Never forget, I think. Something like that.
yeah, there are like a bunch of like stones with like all of the names and so on. But a lot of people do not want to like they don't want to stand against this, right? It's like, oh, this is being like celebrated, and like oh, revolutions. We learned about revolutions all of the time. We learned about the people who like fought back. But nobody actually wants to be like the one who is fighting back.
Yeah.
And they believe that because we had Nazi Germany, and then like our laws were, changed and so on, and like to make sure that nothing like this can happen ever again. I don't really believe that there's no way that, if the AfD wins in the next election, and like it keeps getting worse and keeps getting worse and so on, so they get like more and more power, that there's no way that this is going to happen, like that this is not going to happen. But like people still believe so deeply into like the system that is like obviously not working.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I think the best way to learn from history, and I say this like as a history divulgator, I think, is just having a bit of interest for why things are the way things are. If people could like maybe look at the world and wonder like, damn, how did we get here? They would be able to understand, for example, why transphobia is being used the way it's being used.
Yeah.
How how right-wing movements make their way into power by like poisoning institutions. That's kind of like the realm of how they operate. Like the Republican Party, for example, is a deeply unpopular party. Trump has never won the popular vote with like a significant margin. Like when Reagan won his election, he won with like almost 60%, I think. Richard Nixon won with like over 60% in the US. Trump, I don't think he's ever gotten more than like 51% of the vote.
I mean,
like,
he's not really even unpopular. Like a lot of people.
Yeah. But
the thing is,
but
like,
people don't. But people don't have that perspective that he's a loser. He's leading a losing movement. But
it's just the people who could change something do not want to change anything.
Yeah, but ultimately, I think that the way we resist is by creating parallel communities. Because we can also learn from history, we can also learn from the Black Panthers, from the Pink Panthers as well, which are more like LGBT focused. There has always been ways for minorities to advocate for themselves, to organize their communities, and to just kind of create our own little circles of support where we prevent the right-wing forces of society from like completely destroying us. And I think that's a good thing. I think we should use a lot more of our energy building things than like trying to win the fascists over, because the ContraPoint things, the ContraPoint thing of like converting the alt-right definitely didn't work. Like, look at ContraPoints. What she wanted to do didn't work. So like, I think we need to focus on like rather the Black Panther thing of like protecting ourselves and learning how to look after each other, because that's just the best thing we can do at this point.
It's kind of like how debate pro culture kind of like ruined any form of like discourse.
Yeah, like I think debating is not necessary. You can talk to people, of course. You can talk to people. But you should only debate people you are like actively organizing with. Like because if you're debating someone you are organizing with, you're trying to solve a problem. And if you're debating someone you disagree with, you are doing spectacle, yeah.
Yeah, like there's going to like campuses and like debating the book, like, or like I don't know, somebody like Destiny going around debating the right wingers, and it's like, what does this even accomplish? Because you're talking to people who have like their audience, who have an incentive to not change their mind. There's no
Yeah.
like I have done 2 debates with people who like it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
supposed
yeah.
to be a conversation. It was supposed to be like an ability to like find some common ground through like shared experience and so on. Didn't work out this way. But I do not understand why people, especially like if you're a trans person, right? You go out there, you're expected to go out there and like debate anyone who doesn't want you to live and exist and so on. And you have to like justify your existence to them. Why you should have rights. Like, I do not understand why people would want to dedicate their lives to that, because ultimately they are in a
It is
position to
exhausting, yeah.
just go nah and continue abusing you.
Yeah, this is why debate questions have to be like well constructed, because for example, if you go to a debate as like a minority with someone who's not a minority, and the debate question is, well, like, why should the minority exist? Like that is like fundamentally undignified, right? Like they're making
Yeah.
you participate in a circus where you're basically conceding to humiliating yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And there was like a trans person that debated a right-wing VTuber relatively recently, where what they did was basically that, put themselves
Yeah.
in a position where they entertained the idea that they're worthless and that they're going to humiliate themselves. It was fucking awful. So yeah, I think
It
debates should
is.
only be done with people you're organizing with. You can have conversations with whoever you want, but debate, that's only with people who you're trying to like solve problems with,
Yeah.
because then it is productive. Otherwise it's just like wasting your time, making a circus of your person. Yeah.
I feel like the problem is just like people are refusing to listen to marginalized groups, because like a right winger can go like, you shouldn't exist because I feel this way, and if you go, actually I should exist and I should be like allowed to live my own life because I feel like
Yeah.
XYZ. And then it's like, oh, you're using feelings, you're not using facts and so on. But like right wingers, all they have is feelings, all they have is fear, all they have is like their
Yeah,
ignorance, their hatred.
but they can hide that in saying like, oh, I feel the way normal people feel. So
Yeah.
there is something pseudo democratic about that, because they're saying like, I represent the average person, when most of the time there's no such thing as the average person when it comes to
Yeah, but
like
like that
broad
is like
values. Right?
that is the power imbalance, right? Like they can continue speaking in this point of like ignorance because nobody is going to question this. It like right wingers feel validated if there's like somebody on stage being like, I actually I actually represent normal people, the normal voter. Why, you are like part of the degenerates, the weirdos, the freaks. Like they feel validated through that. They are not going to like actually listen to the views of somebody that their cult constantly demonizes, dehumanizes. Like your
Yeah.
feelings are not valid if you're part of a marginalized group. But right wingers' feelings, they are valid because they are
Yeah.
part of like the people in a position of power. They are the oppressors.
To the purpose of this, I think I will agree with like your previous host, I think, Kat,
Mm-hmm.
in which he said that it's really, really important to read the experiences of Black people,
Yeah.
because Black people in the United States have written like almost a century of literature at this point, if not more, about what it's like to be in this sort of position of marginalization, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
what it's like to be existing in society as like this sort of like double consciousness where you have to like concede on the broad strokes
Mm-hmm.
of who you actually are in order to have like a public person that is accepted by others. Like yeah, ultimately there's a lot of literature there that I think is very valuable, and in the end, we do need to live in a world that is very imperfect. But in order to change it, we do need to like focus on building our own communities first, on building our own safety first.
Yeah.
And yeah,
The,
that's
the
kind of where I think we should
problem
be
the problem when it
putting our
comes to like
energy.
trans online spaces is just like the constant fighting. It's like the constant oh, actually, these fascists told me that I am more valuable as like a trans person than those that are non-passing. So if you all would just like stop calling yourself trans, then actually I would have more rights.
Fuck them.
Yeah,
But
and
I
it's
mean,
just like
what do what do they want us to
constantly.
realistically do? Like,
Yeah, it's just like constantly being like,
yeah, it's not a
oh,
reasonable demand.
because I transitioned sooner, I have like passing privileges, I have white privileges, and so on. All of you just need to like disappear, be quiet, and so on, and then I would have rights. I have people tell me if I
Yeah.
would just like shut my mouth, if I would just like, play my little games and, not exist, then everybody would be much nicer to me, right? Like, if I would hide that I'm trans, like on Valorant, if I don't speak on Valorant, nobody's being mean to me, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
just, and then it's like pushing the idea, oh, then you
Yeah.
would have more acceptance. Actually, trans people had
Yeah.
more rights when nobody knew that you were trans, right? And it's
I don't think that's true. Like,
no,
even when they say
it's
that, I
not,
don't think that's
obviously,
true.
right?
I think the
It's
2000s, for example, were a time where people were maybe not that ill-meaning, but they were very ignorant about trans people. And you had like Ray William Johnson saying like the T slur on his show, and that wasn't exactly a comfortable time. It wasn't like
yeah,
it wasn't
sitcoms.
ill-meaning, but
The
like it
sitcoms
sucked,
that I
right?
grew up with had trans people as a butt of a joke,
Uh-huh.
just randomly. Oh, the worst
Yeah.
thing that could
Yeah, 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 yeah.
happen to like a man if it turns out that actually the woman that they are dating turns out to be a man, right? Like that is kind of like
Yeah.
the idea, the concept that like happened in the 2000s. That was not good. That was not
Yeah, yeah,
making me
yeah.
feel good. That was not making me feel seen. That didn't help me have like
Yeah.
rights. It's like, oh, you had enough representation, and the representation we had is just people making us out to be like gross and disgusting, and we shouldn't exist, and we are the worst thing humanity has ever done, right? Like that is not
Yeah.
actually something to go back to.
Yeah, but like ultimately, I think it's ultimately people who are trying to push the boundaries of human rights in order so that more people get more things, who are ultimately going to be remembered positively. Because, society as it is a society you can live in. But for society to be better, we do need to like do this sort of criticism. It
Yeah.
is true that life would be more comfortable if we were quiet, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that would certainly be the case for me. But I don't think I want to be quiet, because like I don't want to, for example, my children to ask me like, oh, what did you do during the rise of transphobia, and then say like, oh, I had a very good paying job at like this university, and that be like my only point of contention, right? Like ultimately,
What happens, like,
Uh-huh.
there are a lot of trans VTubers as well who are
Mhm.
building a platform because they are hiding the fact that they are trans, and maybe they have like cis passing voices or whatnot, right? And they are stealth, right? They are escaping the transphobia by being quiet about a huge part of like their identity. And people who hate our existence celebrate those trans people who do not talk about being trans, or in quotation marks, celebrate, and demonize and scrutinize those that are visible. And I am rather attacked for being publicly trans than to conform to like fascists, hide this part of who I am, and try to blend in.
Yeah, it's so terrible too because, like, for example, voice training is very easy to do, in my opinion, when you look at it as self-expression, as trying to find a way to like express yourself and like create your own sort of like vocal identity. But when people try to frame it as like, you fitting in or else I'm not gonna treat you like a human,
Mm-hmm.
then it fucking sucks. Then it
Yeah.
feels like you have to put out a performance for others. And uh, I think generally it's a lot happier to like have a life when your mindset is in constructing things, but like conservatives will try to make that very difficult for trans people if they coexist with them, because it will always be about like participating in conformity, settling down, uh, trying to play the game the way everyone else is playing it, even when it might not be possible for you because maybe you have a disability, or maybe you're gender non-conforming, or maybe your life has to be planned differently because any of many things. Like that's the thing, like my experience of knowing trans people, and that's like IRL and online, is that we are some of the people who are happiest to conform, like to be normal if we're
Mm-hmm.
given the chance. Because like a lot of trans women, especially the ones that are super dysphoric, they only want to fit in. They don't want to like
Yeah.
be revolutionaries and call attention to themselves. But we're not allowed to. In a
Mm-hmm.
lot of situations, we're just not allowed to. And I really grieve the people who are not like maybe us that have like activisty mindsets, because they would really just be happy to exist like everybody else,
Yeah.
but they are not given the opportunity to.
I made like this one video where I was talking about how trans people are forced to be activists just because we are
Mm-hmm.
trans.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of cis people underestimate how difficult it is to just exist stealth as well, right? To be
Mm-hmm.
trans and to. So you're like othered because, you're a trans woman and you try to like fit in with like cis women and so on. You're like in a very like in a space that is, you know, cis dominated, and because you're stealth, you're not allowed to connect with anyone. Like you're incapable of like connecting with
Yeah.
others. And
Yeah.
then you're
Yeah.
expected to just like shut your mouth and do all of these things, and it's very isolating. It's very isolating
Yeah.
to
I get you.
exist as a trans person on the internet alone, in real life and so on, like in the workplace. And as a trans person, you ultimately you don't have exactly the same struggles as like cis people, right? Like you can share,
Yeah.
you can bond about like, but like even relationship problems as like a trans person, like dating is different than for like cis people.
Yeah.
And to be expected for of like trans people to essentially just be cis is ridiculous. And to say that like
Mm.
if trans people could just like assimilate and exist as cis people, then everybody would be like fine with trans people, but that's just not how it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think this is ultimately why conversations about progressive politics these days in regards to minorities discuss inclusion more than integration, because inclusion is about like giving people space to be the way they are among the rest of us, instead of like forcing them to assimilate in a world that they can probably not assimilate to. So for example, if you have disabled people trying to like go up the stairs, like maybe you hire them, um, but if they don't have like an elevator, for example, they will not be able to move in the building the same as everyone else. When it comes to like dating as a trans woman, which is something that a lot of people might not necessarily be aware of, but if you go to a club and then you find this guy that really likes you, and then you decide to like maybe hook up with them, it's kind of a coin toss whether they like have a bad reaction and like
Mm-hmm.
like ag- perform an aggression upon you, right? So
Yeah.
that's a fear that cis women have, but like in the case of trans women, it's a fear that we also have to take into account, which is a valid court defense in some countries, like the trans panic defense.
Yeah.
That, that
It's
men can
like,
attack you if
yeah, if you I don't know, if you make out with a guy and then he finds out you're trans and so on, and he doesn't like that, and he feels like
he
grossed out
reaches
by
down
it,
there
and then he, I don't know, beats you up, abuses you or whatnot. Like, there are people who are just going to like celebrate that and be like, oh yeah, that's totally like normal and fine and okay. And it's just,
yeah,
like, it's messed up.
well, yeah. This is why I think it's just better to build our own communities and make them visible.
There's this
Because
thing.
we do need to think about our own safety first. Yeah.
Yeah, there's also like this thing where like right wingers, like cis people and so on, expect to be able to always tell that a trans person is trans, while they also expect us to never mention that we're trans or like anything. Like they don't want to go to like a random Twitter profile and see like a trans flag, but they still want to know that the person that they're interacting with is trans.
Yeah. Because of you, I believe that Jay Schlatt was trans for years, well, for like months. Because you keep sending me memes of like them with a trans flag, and I was like, huh, this is maybe a trans guy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's somebody
but I mistook
image,
him.
and people keep posting it on Twitter and be like, "This is my trans brother. Isn't like he came out 5 years ago? Isn't he cool?" And a bunch of like transphobic bots and so on are going to be like, "That's a woman. That's a very beautiful woman. Actually, I can tell that this is a woman."
No, but it's
like,
a guy. It's like a cis man who was photoshopped to hold a trans flag.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think that idea that you can always tell is like it's false, because like the standards for passing IRL are very different to like the standards of like passing in like these hyper sexual spaces.
Yeah, like even cis women get
online.
like transvestigated all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just a normal thing. And
yeah, I think that there was this person called Sock Darling in like the Canadian election Twitter circle, I guess, who's like a relatively well-known progressive in Canada, and she made like a tweet supporting trans people, but because she made that tweet, people thought she was trans.
And yeah, because you can
like,
only support trans people if you're trans as well.
Yeah, it's so absurd, which is why I'll repeat myself once again. I think we need to focus on making our own spaces.
There's
like IRL online.
There's a gay man on Twitter, gay cis man on Twitter, who has like he/him pronouns and it's like display name, and there are so many TERFs who insist that he's actually a woman, and they keep talking about like his ovaries and shit, and it's like, or like AI generating him as a woman with like long hair and stuff.
Weird.
Like that's what they do.
That's so weird.
It is weird. But like why is that like socially acceptable to like do this shit and still portray yourself as normal? Like what the fuck? And for like trans women, if people know that you're trans, they will like Photoshop you, like AI generate you as like a man with like a full beard, or they keep talking about like my testicles, and like it's so weird, it's so gross, and it's so normalized.
I think that's one of the things that I told you a long time before, that you're like the first post-op trans woman that I've seen people call transgender, because that's like normally reserved for like the more gender non-conforming types, but you're like binary, you're like me in the sense that you don't have like another gender intersection, you're just trans.
Yeah. It's like people dismissing
so bizarre
non-binary identities and so on, and saying that like, oh, you're just like trans for the trend or something, you just want to have like a spicy personality trait. But like, I had bottom
Yeah.
surgery. I've been on HRT for like almost
How
5
many
years,
years
four,
now?
4 years now, I guess. Four and a half.
Damn, okay.
Yeah, I recently had my 4-year HRT anniversary.
Yeah.
But
Congratulations.
thank you.
I remember your stream. I was there.
It was a good stream.
Yeah.
But
I'm usually on your chat as well, but I'm on Hinge there. I have a different personality when I'm speaking on written text.
I've noticed.
You've noticed? What do you mean?
I mean,
You think
the
you
thing
think
is,
I'm
like,
edgy?
you're very educated and woke, and you understand a lot of like topics and so on. Like, you have kind of like, okay, if this is like a D&D characters, right? I think you would have like high instats because you're book smart and so on. You know, like all of these things. You're very well read, I think. I have wisdom. I don't read. I don't like. I read some books, but like, I just take in information and like evaluate it, and like I look at like historical like I do look at these things and so on. But like, I wouldn't call myself intelligent. I would call myself wisdomous.
Wise.
Wise, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyways.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyways, so
we've been talking for 2 hours 10 minutes. So do you want to continue? Or is this good?
Do you have to rush? Do you have to get out?
I don't have to rush. I can see for a bit, but I could take like a toilet pause.
Okay. Yeah, if you want to run to the bathroom real quick.
Okay. I'll be seeing you guys in a second.
Okay, it's just going to be us. Honestly, oh my god, I'm here twice now. Oh damn. But yeah, let me run like a quick little ad break. Also, let me clip this real quick. My thingy doesn't work. Anyways, let's go long pod. Yeah, we can keep going like a little bit longer, I think. Nyara x Nyara. Nyara and Mirror Nyarad. Yeah, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're enjoying the yappies, and I hope that you like listening to me and Ravi. Yeah, VT and Nyara TV for real. Nyara and anti-Nyara. Nyara and evil Nyara. Nyara and Rain. Nyara and Kula Nyara. And now we are Glob. Now we are lesbians. Now we are not Nyara lesbians. Glob, not Nyara. Anyways, I hope you're doing well. I hope everything's fine with you. Typically I do like podcasts that are like, you know, around like 2 hours. Right? But I feel like we can slowly wrap things up. Oh my god. Oh
I was waiting for the moment you were doing something like that. Yeah.
Oh my god.
I'm sorry.
Oh my god. It is
Ravilet.
Sorry. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Yeah, do you want to have a debate on trans issues, like why you're not valid or something?
Yeah, can you just tell me how, like, hypothetically you just love hentai?
Yeah.
You just do it because you love?
I'm sure.
Love it. Leaf looks? Leaf looks?
Leaf looks.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, that's creative. Yeah.
That's oh god.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to trigger her PTSD.
It was an experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, I typically go for like, 2 hours, but we
We
can
can
like
go
wrap
for
this
a
up.
little bit more if you want.
Yeah,
Oh,
we can do like, I don't know.
yeah. Well, my general feeling is that when it comes to trans safety and trans issues, a lot of people like to pretend that this like trans stuff is new. There's like this woman who wrote this book about irreversible damage by I forget the name of the lady, but Abigail Shear, I think, that basically argues that trans people are like this 21st century phenomenon, that it's like the new emo, it's like the new Beatles, in the sense that it's a fashion, and that people are just doing this thing because it's like the new trend, and it's like a damaging trend, in the same way that other social media trends like self-damage have been kind of like going on. But that's not true. There's documentation going back to like the Scythians, for example, in ancient Turkey, documenting a history about how there's always been gender nonconformity, there's always been trans people. And regardless of how hard, the modern right wing has decided to like make us an object of, contempt, I would say that we will always exist. We are a normal part of human diversity, and we will always be there. We will always be around. And just as a time factor, we are going to be winning. We are going to win the fight. We just need to like hold
Survive.
ourselves and sustain for as long as we can. Yeah, it's gonna be a struggle, but
I think
we can win.
I made a video. I talked about how progress has always been made, right? Like 100 years ago compared to now. I wouldn't have had access to HRT. I wouldn't have known about like trans people existing. But we are constantly fighting people who have a much easier time destroying everything. And I think the problem when it comes to a lot of liberals, a lot of those that are actually more like right wing, those that are like liberal politicians and so on, they don't care that much about undoing all of the damage that right wingers do. So we constantly we not only have to like push back against like the public narrative, we don't just like have to keep ourselves safe and like watch out for each other, but we also need to make sure that once things are calming down, that actual change is being implemented.
Yeah.
And
I am arguing for reparations.
Yeah, it kind of makes this, it kind of creates like this weird thing where like your purpose in life is to just keep fighting for a better future for other marginalized communities.
That's true, but there's always some version of a life that's normal that you can more or less have. And I think when people get tired of activism, because eventually they do, because we can't keep like this rhythm forever, there will always be younger people to pick up the torch. So like I'm not concerned about like the moment I burn out, because I know that when I burn out, there will be like a next generation to like pick up things where we left them. Right now I still have energy, and I think we're gonna go for like a very long time. But today is the 8th of May. We celebrate 81 years since the defeat of fascism. Since the defeat of Nazi Germany. It's unconditional surrender to the Allies, and we stand on the victory of those people. We stand on the victory of the people who defeated fascism once, and I am pretty sure that we can defeat it again. Because it has been done. It's something we know can be done. And when it comes to these like modern right-wing movements and all the things that they do, This is something that I joke around with some friends that are like more informed about history. 20th century, 21st century, 20th century fascism. It had a style, it had a project, it had like a vision of what it wanted to do and the civilizational direction. But like 21st century fascism is like a guy with like female body investigator t-shirt at a beach trying to like figure out what he wants to do with his life. It's very confused. It's mostly like tech bros. It's like bullied kids who want to like get to the top of capitalism and maybe enjoy the fruits of their labor. Trump is incredibly confused as a politician. He doesn't have an ideology. He doesn't have a project. It's the same with like the AFD. Like I don't know if you guys know too much about like the AFD, but like the current leader is a lesbian married to an immigrant. You know,
Yeah.
like in France, Jordan Bardella, who is like the leader of the French far right, he used to be like a gamer. Like how would I say it? He used to make let's plays on YouTube playing like Counter-Strike, right? And then you go to Mexico, the like people were putting forward as like the leader of the far right here, who's like Eduardo Verastegui. He was a side actor in the Mall Cop movie. The fucking Mall Cop,
Mm-hmm.
the movie. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's not ideological people. It's not intellectual people. Think about it in the sense of like the neoconservatives in like the 2000s. You had people who maybe they were propagandists for the right, but they were intellectually significant. People like Roger Scruton and all those guys. But you look at guys today, and they're dumbasses. They don't
If
know
you
what they're
look at
doing. Yeah.
if you look at the people who are like celebrating like how Trump is abusing trans people and so on, and you like the Aspirations watchers, right? Like their hero is a guy who lives in filth, who
Yeah,
doesn't
fuck.
shower, who has like rotting teeth and so on, and just like sits there and is like has no idea what the fuck he's talking about, and is like attracting a fan base of people who are miserable losers who do not get female validation, and then they turn resentful and like psychosexually like obsessed and with like all of
Are you
their
there?
hatred, the constant like misogyny and
Okay.
so on that they boost, that like isolates them further from like normal civilization. And they are the ones who are supposed to like
Yeah,
get
the save the
drafted and
West.
fight for like fascists and like enforce like all of this and like destroy Western degeneracy. Like
Yeah.
these are people who would be alone in class.
Yeah.
Nobody likes them. They don't have purpose. They don't have any like valuable skills. They are shunned. And then they turn into like these spaces where there are a lot of people who like hate the same way, and then they blame feminism or like the woke.
Yeah.
And it is incredibly sad, right? But like it's just the whole like fascism and so on, like it's so, if you look at all of the propaganda that they're posting, like the things that they like celebrate and so on, it's so embarrassing. It's so pathetic. And
Yeah, I agree.
I think we just gotta like acknowledge that and be like, eventually all of this is going to fall apart and eat itself, and we just need to like have like our community and like be visible, be safe, and be in our spaces, and just get through this time.
Yeah.
Because they only win if you lose hope. They want to bully you into ending your own lives and so on. They harass you so you end your own life, because that is how they win, right? Like if you give
Yeah.
up, if you give in to that.
Yeah, they could have a future where they are integrated into like the rest of society, but they need to want that, and at the moment they don't want it. Like
No,
this
because
is
they are
ultimately,
like
yeah,
groomed by like these spaces and radicalized by these spaces to like
yeah,
not
no,
not blame their failures for their own shortcomings, you know, like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
their
I mean,
hatred
not
and
to.
like bigotry and so on, but they
Mhm.
just they blame it. They listen to people who tell them to give them money and blame it on like women's standards.
Yeah, like this is like my message to those kinds of guys most of the time, and it's that as a graduate from masculinity myself, right? Life gets a lot easier to live when you don't hate yourself.
Mm-hmm.
When you're not looking at the world trying to like find things to hate. If you are trying to look at things to construct, at things to build, and at things to make others happy and make yourself happy, you have a lot to contribute to the world, because the world needs men. The world needs men to do all the things that they can do with their talents, to do all the things they can do for other people. They have a lot of privileges that they can use to make society better, and we, as women, we do need men by the end of the day, despite of how much we despise them. We are the we are the same humanity. We are here to help each other and move each other forward. But ultimately, as a man, there's a lot of things that society can give you so that you get distracted, so that you don't spend your energy where you have to spend it, so that you blame the wrong people for your problems. And it takes a lot of sobriety and maturity to get to the point where you can look at that and say, you know, I was cheated on, I was lied to, like, this right wing thing, it doesn't work for me and it doesn't work for my loved ones, etc., etc. But it is possible, and it is possible to get there. And ultimately, what I want to encourage in guys, at least like guys in my community as well, is that you can have a better life, but you need to ask yourself questions. If you're looking at like Elon or Trump or like all these guys to give you answers for like what you should do with your life, then your life is going to be controlled by other people. You need to like make your own decisions for yourself. And trans people, more or less what we do is that we do that. We make our own decisions about the kind of life that we want to have and the kind of people that we want to be. And I guess to some guys that's upsetting, but to the right guys it's not.
When it comes
And that's
to
yeah.
when it comes to
Mhm.
like guys, when it comes to like dating and so on, right? Like
Mhm.
there will be guys who have like experiences also from women where they do not perform masculinity enough, and then they're getting like shamed, and it's like, oh yeah, I can't open up about like my emotions because everybody just nobody would want to like date somebody who like a guy who is emotional and so on. And then they go into like these
Mhm.
spaces where it's like, oh yeah, women like they suck, they just like don't want to like listen. I wish that there were
Mhm.
more supportive spaces being formed that are not just like that are there to like help with like the mental health issues of men, right? Because
I
if
would
you
like that
do
to
not
exist as
help,
well. Yeah.
if you don't help like mental health issue, like if you do not care about like the mental health issues of men, you are you know you're helping a society where men are isolated and shove everything
Mhm.
in. They're emotionally unavailable, they're emotionally unstable, they turn this into anger, into resentment, and this harms women. This
Yeah.
will eventually
The
harm
things that
women. This is like why the rise in like fascism, the right wing parties, and so on, why it is full of men who are struggling with themselves, who are like who feel like society neglects them, and then they are letting it out on like, you know, the feminism.
Yeah. What concerns me there is that I think feminism is a little bit adversarial in some of its presentation towards men, and they are kind of like, maybe even if the conclusions are right, and they find the branding a bit toxic, and they are probably not going to approach it very easily. In the 19th century, there were men who had like concerns about like their own mental health and being guys, and you know what they did? They went to the forest, and they just never came back. It's like the people who kind of like fucked off, and they were just guys, they were just guys saying like, "Oh, we want to take care of ourselves," and then they went to the forest.
They spend 10K to go to like an alpha male boot camp that like is of guys yelling at you and
Yeah.
calling them girls or something. Like,
Yeah.
it's so
Ultimately, I think, yeah,
the thing is,
guys
like,
need to like think about gender in a way that's woke, and they can either like listen to women, which some of them will do, but like others will just like not do it. And because there's not necessarily 100 years of gender studies from the perspective of men as there is necessarily, for example, with feminism. They would just fall into these like into the claviculars, right? Like they fall into
looks
incel
maxing.
mathematics and things like that. Yeah.
What I find interesting, obviously, when I tweet about like, the patriarchy and how it harms men as well and so on, a lot of people are going to be there and are going to be like, oh, I will never listen to like a woman who says she cares about men and so on. But then there are also like other comments of people being like, oh, why do you talk about all of these things and like what guys need to do when you know that society treats men like shit and it's too difficult and that's why you wanted the privileges of being a woman or something. It's like,
Oh my god.
it's so fascinating to me, like how the mind of these guys works, and I would love to find a way to approach them and get them like out of like this pipeline. But
I think left-wing men have to talk to other left-wing men. You and I were not gonna do too much.
I don't think I am.
You know what's the craziest?
Going to.
You know what's the craziest thing a guy told me once? Like I was trying to tell a guy that he got rejected. Like, don't take it personally. Some other girl could like you, things like that. And he said like, then why don't you like me? And I was like. That's when I was in high school, by the way.
Why don't you just date me?
Yeah, then why don't you date me? Why don't you take me out of Inseldom?
Why don't you fix
he shot his shot though? I respect it. I respect the shot, but of course I didn't say yes.
The thing is, like, obviously there are going to be a lot of women who are going to be like, the loneliness of men is not something that women need to fix, right? Like, it needs to come from them.
Yeah.
But there's also this level of like, well, if you do not actually try to help men get out of like these things, they're just going to get like radicalized more, and this is going to like hurt you eventually, right?
Yeah, but I think the Chapo Trap House guys, or like Yugopnik or like Hassan, have a better chance of like talking to them than you and I can.
That's kind
because,
of like why I
like yeah.
Like I think Hassan's like Hassan has like a really big role in like the streaming space, like especially when it comes to like something that is more left wing, right? And it's just because he's a cis guy who's also like somebody of like a role model, right? Like somebody who is more attractive, somebody who's successful, somebody who is like, has like the social status, right? And I think that is more, that is easier, like that is going to help more guys escape like this right-wing pipeline than like, I don't know, a trans fox girl on the internet, right? It's just
because we can talk to other trans women.
Yeah,
there's some level in which I'm sure we can talk to women, but like giving advice to guys, It's best if they take it from another guy. But like you and I, we're not gonna get too far with them.
Guys need to
We're
take
also
it from
VTubers,
another
like
guy. Exactly.
yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
But
That's the way it is in gyms, by the way. Like I don't know if you've ever seen a gym, like guys that go together at the gym.
mhm.
That's like gayer like than liking men, in my opinion. Like you will sometimes see like those guys get together and they're like pumping iron. They say, "Damn, bro, your glutes look great from behind," and things like that. And they're straight, but you know they will make that sort of comment to each other.
I feel like a lot of straight guys act gayer
Mhm.
than a lot of gay people, but it's like I don't know,
What do you
like,
mean?
you know, men hyping each other up. As
Ah, yeah.
I think, I mean, you know, it's necessary, and I think that like it's good to have like this bonding. But like I also wanted
Mm.
to say I do have a lot of like cis guys actually like in my community, and I appreciate it a lot
Oh.
when people actually do want to like listen to me. And I think as like trans women we do have like a unique perspective when it comes to like the patriarchy and like how it changed, how
Mm.
it shifted, how it like treats us. It is just I talked about this recently where somebody made like a Reddit post of saying that like, oh no, this video about like trans misogyny is actually misandry, and you know, you're a
Oh
misandrist
yeah,
or
you sent
something,
me
right?
that. Yeah. I
And I
was like, you're so
find,
close.
yeah,
You're so close. You
it's like
almost get it.
it's you're so close, but you're hung up on semantics, right?
Yeah. That's kind of what I
Because
mean by the word being difficult to market. Yeah. They're not into.
yeah, like if you say patriarchy, people are going to be like, oh, you're one of those. And it's
Yeah,
also
yeah,
like
yeah,
how the word feminism has been hijacked by TERFs, who
yeah. Mm-hmm.
whose ideology is that if you have male DNA, you're evil.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And they are the ones who are like, you know, this like modern feminism, which is like, this is not what feminism is about, right? It's not about like
Yeah.
putting men down in order to elevate women. It is
Mm.
about breaking like this sexist hierarchy and the social hierarchy, having gender
Yeah.
equality.
Yeah, it's kind of
And
what a. Mhm.
yeah, go ahead.
An American author who wrote like a book called The Jungle, which like described how poor people used to live.
Mhm.
His name was Upton Sinclair. Said in like one of his books that, you know, for example, Americans will take socialism, but they will never call it socialism,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Like
kind of
they're kind of like
it's kind of what
they
Mamdani
like
did.
the ideas, but they don't like the words. You know,
Yeah,
they like
exactly.
the ideas, but they don't like the words. Yeah, for example, they support healthcare, but they don't want to vote for communism or whatever, even if
It's
mostly they
because
agree with like the issues, right?
yeah, because
Mhm.
these words are like demonized, right? The thing is
Yeah,
like
yeah,
what
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mamdani did is like he explained policies instead of being like, yeah, we're going to bring socialism to New York. It's going to be like, oh, we're going to have social workers instead of like, you know, just the police taking care of like all of the these issues. And so we're going to fix like the housing issues, and
Mhm.
with like going after landlords and so on, going in there and like
Mm.
taking care of all of these things. This is like
Yeah, yeah,
socialism, right? It's socialism stuff. But I feel like
yeah. Ultimate. Mhm.
it's like a branding issue, right? Like if you say like Black Lives Matter, people are going to be like, yeah, but like all lives matter. What about me? And it's a branding issue.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's not to say that I think people should like police how they speak, because obviously they shouldn't. But it is a fault of a lot of these guys. I think that they they do take this discourse very confrontationally, and they do need to be spoken to very softly. And when it comes to like them having like a positive gender perspective, you know, an understanding of the patriarchy, I
Mhm.
think they will be able to discuss it, but they don't want to call it the patriarchy. They want to call it the
Yeah.
matrix or something like that, you know.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
so yeah, that's the thing.
The trans
Ultimately, I believe
allegory.
we will. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, but yeah, it that's not a fight for you and I to fight. They need to wake up on their own terms.
Yeah, I mean,
I think.
I will still talk about these things, and maybe like somebody is
Yeah,
going to like
sure,
take,
sure,
but
sure,
it's not a
sure.
problem that like women can fix, especially trans women, right? Like,
Yeah, because it's like men talking to other men for the most part. Like we can talk
yeah,
about it, of course, but like when it comes to like the solution, you know, to have the reach of like a clavicular, you need to be a clavicular talking to other people who find you like aspirational.
yeah.
And I guess, trans women, just conceptually, they are not exactly what like these men find the most aspirational, because we are people who kind of walked away from it,
Yeah.
so yeah.
When I'm on when I'm on Valorant, I actually have some people say that like I'm a team switcher. I switch teams, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Oh.
I was on your side and now I just decided to be on the opposite team kind of thing, right?
Oh my
Like it's
god. My best friend IRL kind of told me something similar, but it was funny because we used to be roommates, right? And then there was this moment where her dad used to be like one of these German guys that, drinks beer all the time, very masculine, goes on sports, always wakes up at like 5 a.m. to do like an hour of bike, that kind of thing. And she used to make fun of her whenever she made like a tea infusion that was fruits. And yeah, like, it was like, oh, that's a girly tea. That's like a girl's tea,
mhm.
fruit tea. It's not bitter, right? And then, she was like friends with me when we were roommates, and she saw me make like fruit tea sometimes, and she was like happy, and she told me that it meant a lot to her to meet like a cis man that drank fruit tea, because that was like something that her dad used to make fun of her of.
Mhm.
And then like 8 months later of us living together, I was like, I have terrible news for you.
Notice this guy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So sad, but yeah. Hmm.
I think that like as trans people, as trans women, we obviously have to like understand our role in society, how to like influence society in a way to make it better, right?
Hmm.
I think that like as a trans creator, I will obviously mainly appeal to other trans people who feel like me, right? Um, I cannot like I do not have like this reach, especially when it comes to, or like this pull to help guys.
Yeah.
I cannot relate when it comes to like cis women, right? So we are kind of like in this very niche position, and we are also
Mm.
under constant attack, so we have to take care of each other, right? I can offer
Mhm.
places where people can talk, about like their experiences like femboys and whatnot, right? Like I can do that, but
This is my experience with femboys.
I
Like,
will I
yeah.
will never be able
Mhm.
to make tough left-wing topics approachable and appealing to cis guys who are already like radicalized.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like there needs to be a point of like them actually like wanting to just like listen.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll take time, but I think some of them are already there.
Mm.
I think it's just a matter of waiting for the rest. And for the rest, they do need to be spoken to in terms that they like. We can probably make feminism palatable to guys, but we need to add like Hot Wheels and fire and like, I don't know, a couple of wings in the advertisement, because they do need messaging that like suits them, and probably the messaging of feminism is somewhat controversial for them, in
I think
emotionally speaking, even if it's true.
the main issue is that like these guys do not gain anything obvious by supporting feminism.
Yeah, especially because
Obviously,
if you are someone who is privileged,
yeah.
the loss of privilege feels like oppression to the privileged. Yeah.
Obviously, like being able to like break gender norms and so on. Like if you're a guy and you want to do things that are like considered stereotypically feminine and so on, or you know, like you're emotional and people are making like fun of you, you supporting feminism will alienate you from spaces like these toxic masculine spaces, right? So it feels like you're losing your friend circle. You're losing your quote unquote support system, even if they're not supportive, even if they're incredibly toxic and so on. And there are not a lot of like spaces where these guys can like flee to.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to like,
there can be,
you know, going into like left-wing spaces. If you're stuck in the right-wing pipeline, if you're like stuck in there, if you have like all of like the propaganda internalized and so on, and you go into a left-wing spaces, a lot of people will just like constantly, you know, call you out and like the things that you believe. And
yeah.
It takes a lot of effort and time to like actually change and you know, unlearn all of like these things. And there are not a lot of spaces who feel or like who have like the strength to invest into helping people like that.
Yeah, but ultimately the people who are most empowered to do that are usually like their family and their IRL community. Because by the end of the day, whenever you fall into these like, you know, hateful messaging online media spaces, they speak to your emotions, right? Like nobody really comes to like the great replacement political theory stuff because they are very convinced about the factuality of it, because it's not true. It's mostly because they feel it's true, you know. It speaks to something that they feel. And the best people who can speak to their feelings are people who love them. And I guess the problem with a lot of these guys is that they're not usually people who are very loved.
Yeah.
And when you don't love people, and when people don't love you, like one of the easiest things you can do is hate. Like, because you're already in an environment of negative emotions. And at least speaking for myself, that's how I found Jordan Peterson when I found him, like all those years ago. Because I was kind of lonely. I felt like my life was going nowhere. And I was looking for like a spoon to dig myself out of the hole. And that's the spoon I found, you know.
Yeah.
That's the thing that was accessible. But there were trans women back then, you know, making content like Cat Black and the Skeptic and like all of these other creators that I could have gravitated to, but I didn't.
Yeah.
And I think I didn't mostly because I was trying to pretend to be a man, right? Like, and I was trying to like look for the people who would help me do that better. So yeah, I think for those reasons, it would be difficult for trans women to have like too much of a role in that. But we do have a lot of people we can speak to, people who are like a bit more, you know, on the other side already.
Yeah. When I was like, you know, 10 years ago and so on, I also watched people like Milo Yiannopoulos and John Peterson and so on before, you know, everything. And
you liked Milo?
I mean, back then he wasn't deplatformed. Back then, you know, it's just I don't know. I just like I watched all of like these like right wing. I didn't watch Ben Shapiro actually. I didn't know that he existed. But like I watched their content and I didn't actually go out there to look for trans creators. And I wonder if that's also like this the same thing of like I do not want to actually have an incentive or like see that there's an escape to the prison that I'm stuck in. Like I
Yeah.
know that I'm trapped, and I'm trying to feel content with being trapped, instead of like seeing that there are some people who had the courage of stepping outside.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a main it's a main point of why I just like I watched someone like John Peterson, because also like he's, you know, he's an authority figure on like psychology and so on. And it's like, okay, I'm trying to find coping mechanisms of like dealing with like gender dysphoria and so on. I'm trying to like get some value out of that. And not necessarily like, I want to see people who are actually doing something about it and like going out there and like changing something. Because I was so terrified of transitioning and not being able to pass. To be like, oh, I am going out there. I'm going to, you know, start HRT and so on. Like I was so scared of like this process, of this journey. And I just thought that like, even if I do transition, even if I do go on like HRT and so on, I will never be able to look myself in the mirror and see a woman.
I see.
And I think that was like, I was isolating myself, right? Like I was socially anxious. I didn't really engage with a lot of people. I stuck with myself. I didn't really have friends that I could count on or something. A lot of, you know, people are just like united by hatred. And like I was stuck in this pipeline. But for me, obviously, the solution was to just start transitioning and have like the strength to just like fight and push through. This obviously
addressing the
doesn't
causes.
it doesn't apply to like cis guys who feel the same way, who feel like a similar way, but like it's not because they are trans and they have gender dysphoria and so on, but it's just because they are alone and they are feeling unwelcomed and unloved and so on, and that's why they're like stuck in this pipeline, these spaces.
Yeah.
So like my solution to my problems doesn't apply to these people.
Yeah. But I think it does, though, because I mean, this is not to say that we have to put every Jordan Peterson fan on estrogen. I mean, I would love that, but no.
It could fix
this is to say that this is to say that what you did was like address the causes of your problem.
Yeah, exactly.
In your case, your problem was dysphoria, and like in the case of these other guys, you know, like maybe they're lonely for their own reasons, and they just need to find out what those reasons are. You know, I think one thing that is actually difficult about like growing up as like a boy is that people make it very difficult for you to ask questions about your emotions and your feelings.
Yeah.
And they make it very difficult for you to like act and make choices that respect your emotions and your feelings.
Yeah.
And getting to a point as an adult where you're actually prioritizing that is like very, very hard. But it's still something that can be done. And I do think that, you know, part of becoming like a whole person, a sober person, is being able to do that, is being able to reach that point where you can look at your heart seriously and make choices that accommodate it, not just live by like what politicians tell you or what like the media tells you or like by what your parents tell you. It's just living in accordance to your own values. And if you don't feel like you understand what your own values are, well, you go and find them. And, you know, content creators, especially those like right-wing content creators, they want to keep you in a certain headspace because they make money out of you being in that headspace.
Yeah.
They're not really seeking to like find your problems. Like if you are going to like the self-help community and you're stealing the self-help community for like 5 years, then maybe it's not a very good self-help community, right? Like it's not helping you get out. so so that's kind of like how I see that sort of stuff.
It's kind of like, the thing is, like, you will have like these men, the alpha males and so on, be like, okay, your life sucks because um you're too emotional. You don't earn enough money. No woman wants you because you don't earn enough money and because you're too emotional. You haven't figured everything out by like age 25. You're not, you don't have like 14 cars. So actually, nobody would ever want to date you. You need to actually have somebody to date in order to be like a good person and a full person, a complete person. You need to have like a family by the age of like 30. You need like 3 children and so on. Like, these are like the expectations. And then it's like, oh yeah, but like society doesn't care about you, society neglects you, and actually you should die in a war. And it's by
Or Israel.
design.
Okay, no.
Like, it's by design that society has like these expectations for men and then like neglects you and expects you to like figure everything out on your own. And then you will have like these right-wing spaces be like, oh yeah, the reason for that is because feminism and because women need to be protected and need to be provided for, so you need to actually like get your shit together and you need to like work 16 hours to every single day and make money for like a family that you don't even have, right?
Yeah.
Because women's standards are too high. And that is kind of like the problem. It's a very, it's kind of an obvious problem, right? Like, if you look deeper into
I see.
like what the patriarchy actually is, like, it's just, you know, it's like, this is kind of how everything works. But like, these people will just sit there and be like, oh yeah, but that's just like misandry, and like, you're not acknowledging that that is just like a misandry, and you call it like the patriarchy. That's actually like hateful towards men, and actually I will never listen to you. And it's just, if you tell these guys that like it's okay to be emotional, it's okay to like be in touch with your emotions, then they're going to be like, so you want us to be gay? Like, there's always like this defense mechanism, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I will never be in a position where I can like destroy that thought, like the radicalization.
My sense of it is that, you know, growing up, boys and girls are put into like 2 different dilemmas, I guess. Girls are put into a situation where they're told by society all the time what they have to be. And boys are put in a situation where they're told they can be anything they want to be except girls. So, like, growing up, the way that was difficult for me is that, you know, I felt like there was this big part of myself that I could never, like, fully access, but I could kind of cope by doing other things because I had a lot of hobbies and a lot of things I wanted to get interested in. But when it came, for example, to, like, cis men, I understand that they have, like, this existential question of, like, you know, I am being told I can do whatever I want, but I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know how to ask intelligent questions that would allow me to like limit my potential and choose a thing from among all the things I could be. And a lot of like the charming thing of like right-wing content, I guess, is that it offers you an escape from that choice. You know, it puts you in a situation that's more or less like the girl situation where someone tells you what to be. You know, you stop having to choose what you need to be. You're put in a situation where you are being told what to do. And in that sense, I think I will agree with you that like men are a bit submissive in that sense because they start desiring instructions, right? And women, on the other hand, they are a lot more driven in the other direction. You know, women are a lot more often put in situations where we want to go out into the world and do things, and we find barriers. Whereas men, you know, tend to suffer from the opposite problem where they feel like they want guidance in a world that gives them very little of that.
Yeah, it's kind of like the, oh,
So
boys will be boys, oh, you'll figure it out. It's like, oh, men don't ask for
yeah.
directions. And then it's like, okay, but what if I actually like need a little bit of help? Like you kind of seek that out, so you're getting into a point where you're craving like authority figures. And
yeah.
I find it really interesting that like a lot of cis people do not question certain things. It's like, oh, do I like certain smells when I go get like a soap or something because I like it, or because it says for men?
It's just so pro. It's just so pro. Yeah, I get what you mean.
It's like if I want to go out there and I look at like shampoos and I look at the men's sections, like maybe there's like a 1 out of like 50 smells that I find like okay. And I didn't really feel differently before transitioning. It was just like, okay, I'm not thinking about this. It's just like, it says for men, I take it because I'm a man, right? It's just...
I always just use my mom's. I didn't care.
Yeah, people don't really like do anything.
On the shower, yeah.
People don't question a lot of the things that they do because it's just they're being put in this box, and like this is catered towards me. I have to like certain things because it says this is for my phenotype. So you know, like it's just.
I get the sense that all the men wash stuff smells like toothpaste. Like it's all different toothpastes. I never. they don't have like things that are too perfumed. It's kind of depressing.
It's just.
I mean, I like that. But,
there's just like this problem in like within this heteronormative society where people just do not question things. And they don't want to like explore who they are. They just listen to how society dictates they should be, and then they see someone who is like trans who's breaking these norms, and then they're going to be like, oh no, you shouldn't do that.
Yeah. Well, it kind of goes to what we were discussing at the beginning, right? Like,
exactly.
To be a conservative in a way is to conform. And if people ask you to conform about like everything in your life, you know, they ask you to conform by staying married in like a marriage that maybe you don't like. They ask you to conform by staying in a job that pays you well, even if you hate the job, like, you know, all these things. They kind of live their lives making compromises. And the sad thing is that a lot of them never get to know themselves very well because they don't ask questions about the kind of people they could be if they allowed themselves to be free and be like their wonderful selves. They just do the things they do that they think will give them the most opportunity, even if sometimes they don't, you know? Like my mom was a woman who lived like very conservatively for a very long time. And she did like everything right, we could say, but she still got cheated on like 5 times. And, you know, that wasn't her fault, but she still has to live with like the consequences of that, because maybe a healthier guy or like a healthier option for a romantic partner, and what makes a healthy romantic partner, those were questions that she never bothered to ask because she was just like going off with like conformism, right? Like settling for things.
We also live in a misogynistic society where it's never a man's fault when they do something horrible.
Oh yeah.
Like,
yeah, like my dad is still getting away with it.
If you're a cis woman, if you're a cis woman and you know, you're pregnant, and it's like, oh yeah, you didn't use protection or something. If you have like a guy who's then leaving and you know, now you're a single mom, then it's like, oh yeah, what did you do to drive this man away, right? It's always, you are being looked at differently because like you're a woman in a misogynistic society. And if you talk about these
Mm.
things, a lot of these guys are going to be like, yeah, but like, actually, they are so privileged and, all of these things. Because like, people have like there's this divide drawn in society where it's like, oh, these are women problems and so on. And like on the other side, you have men, and these are like men problem. And like, you do not have actual conversations between genders because people do not like relate to the same, like to the bigotry like the same way, right? Men will not experience misogyny in the same way that like women do, right?
What is a question that you think more men should ask themselves?
Oh my god. Why? Why are
What?
we still here? Just to suffer.
Just okay.
No,
okay.
it's just, oh my god. I feel like there are a lot of questions that like guys should ask themselves more often. I think like it's just a difficulty to like, because you only have like your life experience, right? Like if you have male privilege, you do not understand that you have actually male privilege because things are still shitty, right? And it's difficult for somebody who has a more privileged position to understand how life is if you have like how going through life actually is if you have less privileges, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm not entirely sure how you would like fix that.
Okay. Yeah, I
It's
think
just like it
you
just
go
needs to
around
come from
fixing that
down.
mostly by yeah. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I think they do need to like ask themselves those sort of intelligent questions about like how to examine my life so that it looks more like something I would like to live. And yeah, ultimately that's why trans people transition, right? Because we asked that question and we figured out a way that we would like to live that makes us happier. So I mean that's why trans conservatives confuse me so much, because they were able to ask the question, but then they went back to the same thing.
They want to be the good
But it's whatever.
ones.
They want to be the good ones, yeah.
I think it's kind of like the urge of the oppressed to appeal to the oppressors in order to get privileges from being seen as
Yeah, get
like
some
quote
level of
unquote the good
protection.
ones, right?
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Ultimately, though, I think the world is moving in like a good direction. I would much rather live right now than any time before. And in that sense, I think we're living in a very bad time for trans people. But in a decade or two, people will look back to these days and ask like, "What the fuck did we do? Like, why were we doing this? Like, why?" Because it's not normal. Like, none of this behavior is normal. It's very weird for people to be so needlessly cruel.
Yeah.
And
I do wish we lived in less interesting times. Every now and then,
I guess.
I'm just like, I wonder what life would be like if I wouldn't live through this time, but I read about it in history books.
Oof, I mean,
Like
that's a
once
very
everything is like over, once everything is over,
yeah.
but that is also like, how would it be like to live, through like World War II in Nazi Germany, instead of like just reading about it in like the history books, right? Like imagine being a trans person during that time. Like
Back
it's
then, yeah.
terrifying. Like, and I just want to fight for like a better future where people, you know, where the next generations are going to learn how a trans anime fox girl helped fight for like a better future for trans people, right?
Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna be very annoying about it, like to younger trans people.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, you don't know how it was in my day.
Back in my day, we had AI slop taking over, destroying everything. You don't even know. You don't even know the shit that I saw in my inbox on Twitter. Remember Twitter?
Yeah. Remember Twitter. Like, take your pills, grandma.
I streamed when it was on twitch.tv to a group full of social outcasts and talked about the struggles of humanity.
Yeah. Oh, I know I'm going to be very annoying about it, especially because I am like a hobby historian, I guess. So I will be able to talk about the past in a way that most people won't be.
I meowed and barked. And that's how you got rights.
That's how you got Twitch subs to fund the revolution. Yeah.
I clicker trained my Twitch chat in order to fight for the Trantifa army.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a fun note to end on, I think. I think I'm gonna go. I have to go stretch and maybe cook. So
yeah, thanks for hanging out. This was longer than I expected.
I had a great time.
But if you ever want to come on, if you ever want to come again, I'm happy to have you. Always nice talking with you.
I'd love to. Yeah.
You wanna plug your stuff? You wanna say where people can find you?
Oh yeah, well, I am Ravine Lux everywhere. Like the tag that you see on Twitch right now, that Niara put on the title, you can find me that way on Twitter, on YouTube, on Blue Sky. Like, search for a social media and you can probably find me that way there. But please follow me mostly on YouTube and Twitter and maybe Blue Sky, because that's the places that feed my ego the most. So, yeah. Okay. Well, thanks. I make history videos for the most part, and I also stream video games sometimes. So, yeah, I mean, if you're interested in that, I think you will like me.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out.
Does she make content in French? I have a lot of people asking me to do that, but I have not yet. I should probably make a video explaining to people that I am not from Quebec, because this is like a conspiracy theory that some people have. I am not French Canadian. I am not French Canadian. I made history videos about French Canada, but that does not mean I'm French Canadian. Okay. Yeah, you know, it's like if you make videos on like Slovenia, for example, and Slovenia is so small that everyone thinks that you're Slovenian, right? Like that's kind of what I saw.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing that happens to like cis women that defend trans people, and then everyone thinks they're trans. Right? Like, yeah. Like, why are you doing that? Anyway.
Thanks for hanging out.
Well, yeah, I had a great time. See you. Bye. Have a good day, everybody. Have a good rest of your day / night, and I'll be seeing you when I see you. Bye.